earlier, I'm not sure if that's to sit earlier and retain the time that we've changed it to today, or whether it is a suggestion that we should sit earlier and finish earlier.
No, the suggestion came from me, so, and I was saying, like, if you're losing time today, then the following day you could possibly crave the indulgence of everyone for an extra hour. So what, if you were pushing us like 4:30, 4:45 today, 5 o'clock, instead of keeping us 6, you may want to start 9.
Yes, I'm open to that suggestion.
It'll be more productive early in the morning. The hour in the morning is more productive than the hour in the evening.
I'm open to that subject to witness availability and convenience. I appreciate that we've all got other lives as well, but this must take priority. We're all lawyers, we know what that's like. So I think that's not an unhelpful suggestion, and I'll certainly take that on board. Has anybody got any difficulty with starting at 9 o'clock on any particular day? No? Good. I understand that's the normal starting time for courts in this jurisdiction in any event. Good. Well, what we will do is to go on till about 4:30 today. If we find that we haven't been able to conclude what needs to be concluded today, we will, subject, as I say, to the witnesses, resume on tomorrow morning at 9. So, and I'll adopt that policy wherever possible between now and the conclusion of these 2 weeks to try and make sure that we stick to the timetable that we've applied. I'll ask you all, please, to look again at what examination you've got, try and concentrate it in such a way that we get to the issues, and I'll do my level best not to interfere too much. All right. So I hope you've been able to have some lunch, Mr. Ali, and we'll proceed now. Thank you. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ali, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to get straight to the plugs, which is one of the important parts. Have you, the brand of plug that you use, Lancers, have you ever used it before?
I did, yeah.
Beg your pardon?
I did.
Yes. They have helpfully published a video and material online how to safely install the plugs. Have you watched that video?
Sorry?
Have you ever viewed the video?
I did, no.
Have you ever read the literature online?
Yep.
Right. And you, how many times you have used that plug before?
I used that plug twice.
Which plug are we talking about? The inflatable?
The Lancet, yes, inflatable, sorry.
You.
The inflatable plug I'm referring to.
Twice.
The Lancet inflatable plug. When did you use it before?
At number 5 in 2020 and number 6.
Right. Have you ever reviewed the installation safety instructions for the plug?
Not really, no.
Mr. Chairman, I'm at page 9832 in the bundle of submissions. Core bundle. That's core.
Bundle of submissions.
It says bundle of submissions. I think it's the electronic bundle. It's on the screen also. Yes. Could you scroll along to the, under the rubric, safety should always be of the most importance. You see, prior to doing any installation, that you should review the pipe plug safety instructions. You said you have never done it. Have you circulated to your men team to review? Who have you circulated it to?
My son went to the States and bought the plug back himself. He spoke to the people there.
Right. But he wasn't the only one installing it.
No.
What did you all do to educate everyone with respect to the safe installation of the plug?
He would have spoken to his crew.
Well, you don't know that. You assume that he would have.
Yeah.
You know that there is a procedure to put a brace while it's installing the plug. I know I'm taking you a bit quickly, but could we go to page 3? under the rubric installing the pipe plug. It's page 9835. The first one says to make sure it's the correct size plug for the line. What line you did in 2022 was a 30-inch line. The line
Yeah,
with yes.
they're both 30-inch.
And this plug was to which line?
30-inch.
So it's only a 30.
Range from, I think it was 24 to 30. I'm not sure right now, but there was more than one size.
Right. And ensure the pipe is rated to handle the back test pressure for the application. Did you do that examination before you insert the plug and pressure it up, that you ascertain that the pipe was fit to take the pressure?
Yeah.
You did that?
Yep.
What was the pressure to install that pipe, that plug?
I don't think that's what they're saying there. You know.
What they're saying? That's the plug itself.
Yeah.
Right, and ensure that the pipe is clean and free of debris or damage, which can damage the pipe plug, cause the pipe plug to fail or dislodge from the pipe.
Right, we did that.
Did you all clean inside
We did.
Just before the 30, just above the 30 foot liquid?
No, when we pumped out the line was clean. When we pumped down the line was clean.
When you pumped down the oil, the line was clean.
The line was clean.
Could you explain to us how that can be?
Well, the liquid went down. There were no solids, no rust or anything on the line. I think that's what they meant.
You think that's what they meant?
Yeah.
But again, that's what you think?
Yeah.
To go over to the next page, towards the bottom, what page is that? Number is that? The next, 9835, under the rubric blocking, bracing, restraining the pipe plug. And do you understand the purpose for blocking, bracing, restraining the pipe plug?
That's why we ensured it went down on a leg of liquid.
No, that is probably the way you did it. But you understand the reason for it?
Yeah, to stop the plug moving, to restrict the movement of the plug. Once you put it on a solid thing or the leg of liquid, it wasn't supposed to move.
So you use the liquid to support the plug?
Come back.
You use the liquid to support the plug?
Exactly.
So if the liquid evaporates or disappears, the plug goes?
Well, it should not have inside the pipeline evaporate or go.
Beg your pardon?
It should not have.
Yes. But that is...
But now, in hindsight, we know something happened there. Right. But at the time...
I like it. Right. We all know.
And the science of it is the liquid would restrict movement of the plug.
But they're not telling you here to use the liquid to rest the plug on.
They said to restrain the plug.
Right.
They didn't say how to restrain it. If there was no liquid, you would block it.
Right.
Right? Like to the top of the plug, there was no liquid. And we used the mechanical plug as a restraint.
Oh.
So you had the plug wasn't supposed to go down because you had a solid leg of liquid below.
Right.
And the mechanical plug would stop it coming up.
Right.
Whilst
so once you remove the mechanical plug, the top support is removed.
Right. So at that stage, we were removing the plug. Yeah. While you're in operation, while you're doing the welding and you're doing that sort of stuff, you restrain it, you make sure.
Right. We could move faster if you just accept. The plug had two hooks on top to attach cables.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of those hooks?
Those were also restrained.
To restrain it within the hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah.
So it would not fall into the pipe.
Yeah.
That was done?
Sorry?
Was that done?
That was done, yeah.
When was that done?
When they removed the mechanical plug. They're attached.
They're supposed to attach.
No, they did.
Right. So the plug should be in the hyperbaric chamber, but it wasn't.
No, I'm not saying that. I said they attached it.
Right.
If you look at the plug, the pictures I got now, you'll see where the lug was broken off.
Right.
So when they moved, it broke off the
So some of the key considerations when blocking, bracing, or restraining pipe plugs are as follows. Do not point load the pipe plug when blocking and bracing. What does that mean?
that you shouldn't have anything sticking up that the plug could puncture itself. So that's why the liquid was a better option.
Instead, use multiple points of contact on the plug in order to spread the back pressure.
Correct. So that's why the liquid was a better option.
I finish it. Over the largest possible area of the plug.
Correct.
Right.
So you don't have point load and that would stick into that puncture there.
Right. But I get back to you. Once that liquid goes, the support that you're depending on goes.
At the time, we didn't expect it to go.
I accept that. But it happened that it went.
Can I ask a question in relation to that, please, Mr. Ali? This plug that you're being asked about, there was no attempt by you, as I understand it, to check the integrity of that plug in the 12-day gap between it being installed.
Unfortunately, we couldn't get at it. The only way to get it was to remove it.
Well,
it was inside the pipe 30 feet down. And we had the mechanical one. So we could remove the mechanical plug, but we couldn't access. We had to go inside the pipeline.
Well, forgive me. That's what I want to ask you. You would have had to have removed the mechanical plug, first of all. All right?
Correct. Yeah.
Now, assuming you'd removed the mechanical plug and left the inflatable plug.
Yeah.
One way in which to check the integrity of that was to ensure that the pressure that had been pumped into the PSI into that plug was the same as when you left it.
It would have been, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it was, but whatever the pressure was necessary to inflate it so that it created the seal, which you're talking about.
But remember, it was in operation test mode for the 4 hours, and it didn't move for that stage. Right. So that was a way of testing it as well.
Well, but
we didn't.
You said earlier, you see, that normally you would want this work to be done within 4 days of installing plugs.
Yeah.
We know that it was 3 times that much.
Yeah.
Did that not cause you some anxiety to check the integrity of that plug?
That's what I'm saying. So we put the chamber into operation, right, and it had the air pressure in it, and it held. So that was one way of testing it.
Well, by the time you did that, you had the mechanical plug in place, didn't you?
Yeah, but the mechanical plug wasn't sealed off.
Was what, sorry?
It tightened against the wall of the pipe.
Yes. Well,
but there wasn't a pressure seal. We had holes in the plug, the same bolts, to leave the pressure to pass in and out of that.
And I've not understood this then.
It's not airtight then.
Am I to understand it that you're saying that the mechanical plug that is put over the top of the inflatable plug,
it wasn't airtight.
Was not airtight?
No, it was tight against the side of the pipe that would stop it moving up and down in the pipe.
Right.
Right? But it didn't stop the pressure from passing through in and out of the pipe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was meant...
Just a minute, Mr. Ali. I need to write that. Thank you. So I can take it, can I, that the mechanical plug didn't create a seal?
No, it more was like a physical barrier to stop the plug coming out and to stop things falling onto the plug.
I got you, right. So what Mr. Peterson was asking you about this inflatable plug, once you put the hyperbaric chamber over the top, that would have had that downward pressure.
It would have, yeah.
And do you know if it moved, if the inflatable plug moved when you did that?
Well, it was still there when they opened the seal, but we wouldn't know. All we would know is that the chamber was operating.
Right.
Right? It was voiding the liquid in the chamber, and we were getting some ullage in the pipe about 4 feet under the where we did the flange.
Right.
So it was never meant to be a seal.
The mechanical plug was never a seal.
No,
Right. Well, I have completely misunderstood that until you've just told me.
Yeah, I think it's stated there that it was to stop there.
Then it's passed me by, and
yeah.
I'm grateful to know that that's what you're saying. All right, thank you very much. Sorry, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One more question on the plug before we move. Could we just scroll back up to the rubric ahead of, stop, come back down, please. Monitoring the pig plug, all right. Pipe plug, the pig is here. Monitoring the pipe plug. Once the insulation, you see that?
Yeah.
Once insulation and inflation of the plug is complete and you are working the application, the plug should be monitored regularly. The required inflation pressure should be checked every 4 hours at a minimum, but more often in critical situations. But that plug was installed 12 days before.
It was.
What do you say about this?
So it was monitored. Before you went into the chamber, we would leave it running to make sure the plug was still holding.
Not the hyperbaric chamber I'm talking about.
I know, but I'm saying the way we knew the plug was still holding was because we could fill we could empty the hyperbaric chamber.
Right.
Right? So the pressure from the chamber was going acting on the plug.
But you don't know if it's holding, but you don't know if it's leaking. Because it's there for 12 days, and they're suggesting every 4 hours.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
I'll say it slowly.
What are you talking? No, you don't have to say it slow. What are you talking about leaking?
The inflatable plug was installed 12 days before the 25th.
Right.
The manufacturer's specifications suggest, which you told me that you hadn't read, but we have to accept it in the bundle, indicated that you should check the pressure in the plug every 4 hours at a minimum and more often depending on the situation. That wasn't done.
The only way it could have been done by making sure the chamber was functioning. If the chamber wasn't functioning, it meant you were losing the pressure down there.
The chamber, you said the chamber was able to push down the water. And you interpreting that to mean that the plug?
That the plug was holding.
Yes, but holding how?
Holding sufficient enough, right?
But not sufficient enough to stop a delta, a latent delta pressure.
As we said before, the delta P, we could, in hindsight, at the time we installed the plug, there was a leg of liquid underneath that would have eliminated delta P.
Okay.
There were other considerations that could have caused delta P that we haven't uncovered.
Another conclusion or explanation. If the plug, well, we all know into the realm of speculation. If the plug was at its best, the delta P force may not have been able to pull it in.
If it was at its best.
At its best, like completely pressured up, properly installed, properly braced.
So are we speculating that during the 12 days, the pressure was lost in the plug?
That's the problem we have. That's what the chairman is trying to first understand. That's what we're investigating here.
Yeah, but the plug didn't move until we went and it deflated it. So it was okay.
It's like a car tire. Let's
yeah, but what I'm saying, we had to deflate it in any case.
It's like a car tire, Mr. Ali. Sometimes you tire kind of soft, you say, gas station, I ain't stopping there, but I will make it home.
Right.
Or you have it, you stop and you pressure it up efficiently.
So
that's what I'm
And I am telling you,
Parallel I'm drawing.
and I'm telling you, it's only when we deflated it that the plug moved. So prior to us deflating it, the plug was good at its best.
Prior to you deflating it, it had not moved.
It had not moved.
But you don't know if it was at its best.
In any case, we had to reduce the pressure. So whether it had reduced and stayed there, we still had to come and reduce it even more.
Right. Well, we have the manufacturer's specifications in the bundle. I now want to take you quickly to the method statement, the final one that was used, which is number 116.
Yeah.
Your guys did not hold religiously to the steps in that method statement.
Your guy is making up a story.
No,
There was one method statement, and we used that method.
Can we have the method statement up so that we can see what you're saying? Thank you. Can we put, what page is it at, please? Is it in core bundle 2? Or 3, maybe it's in 3. 3, yeah. At, 10 where? 1048. Yes, thank you. Can you identify what you're speaking of, please, Mr.?
Method statement 116.
Yes.
Is this the only method statement you submitted?
We submitted a method statement at the time we tendered the job.
Yes.
We submitted a method statement for removing the oil in the pipeline. We submitted a method statement for installing the plug and installing the chain.
Right.
Right.
Those earlier ones are number 108, and I can't remember the other number.
Right.
But the one I'm referring to is this one, that the last one on the job.
Could you scroll down, because I'm not sure if it's the final version.
What's that?
Hold it. Scroll on a bit more, please. Yes, that looks like the one we am.
Where do you want him to look, Mr. Peterson?
Now, if we go to, the job was stopped on the 13th, wasn't it?
On the 15th.
On the 15th, sorry, 15th of February. After completing number 53.
Can we turn to 53 then, please? Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me ask, is this method statement supposed to follow in order 48, followed by 49, followed by 50? Or can you jump around depending on the execution?
It's supposed to follow unless we have an agreed change between us and Paria.
Are you aware that when they stopped on the 15th, they stopped after completing step 53 and they resumed with step 58? And then they had 61 to 73. Then they reverted up to 54. They were moving around. Are you aware of that?
Can you come back on that?
Oh,
Who's control? I
Right. Well, can we take it one bit at a time, please, Mr. Peterson, so that he has a fair opportunity to answer your questions? So you're saying that on the 15th, the work was called to a halt. That was at the conclusion of number 53 that we've already read. That's performing a dye penetration test to ensure the integrity of the well, I imagine, right?
Yes.
And then options if it passes or not, right? So that's when work was called to halt.
So
That's what Mr. Peterson has
Yes.
put to you, right?
but he's flipping the screen. So I can't see it.
Right. So the next step, he says, is number 58. So can we turn to 58, please?
60. Did I say 58? No, 61, sir. We started at 61. Sorry. That
You say it restarted at 61, right? So what is being suggested to you is that steps 54, which was on completion of the well, conduct a pressure test on the flange well. 55, which is on acceptance, remove the test hardware.
Could I have a couple minutes?
You need to speak into the microphone.
Explain. All right. So on the 15th, we finished late and we couldn't do the test. It was
Right.
that late. So we said we resume because we didn't have the technicians for testing the well on the 16th. We said the test continue on the 17th.
Right.
Right. But there were a couple steps that could have been interchanged.
Yeah.
So we,
Pause there for a minute. Did you complete the well test on the 17th?
no, we didn't.
No. Right.
Right. So we went out on the 16th and we changed around the step in order to progress the work. So we went on to,
So had
The
works
steps.
been stopped on the 15th?
right, so we stopped at 54. We didn't do the weld.
Right.
And if somebody could please scroll up again, could I? Who's control? Yeah? Yeah. Could you go down to where we open the chamber?
You've got the document in front of
Okay,
you. It's
before-
easier for you to scroll
Okay,
through it.
I'll go without the screen. I'll just explain it as
All right.
it might be easier. All right. So we couldn't do the pressure test on the weld.
Right.
We decided we'll come back on the 17th. We didn't come back on the 17th, whatever reason. So we came back on the 25th. All right. While we were waiting
So
for the
is
pressure.
Mr. Peterson right when he says to you the work on your schedule, scroll back please to 51, that it stopped at 51, 52, 53? That's where it stopped.
It stopped at 53.
Right. And is he right when he says it resumed at a different place to 54? Have a look at 54.
Yeah, it resumed at a different place.
Right. Where do you say it resumed?
It resumed at where we
Scroll forward, please, so that we're on to the next page. Right, have a look at that page. Let's pause there. Where in that list between 56 and 65 do you say it resumed? Have a look.
I have to do it here. That is not moving.
Have a look at 56, paragraphs 56 to 65. And you
Okay,
tell us,
so we go up to 61.
right, 61, unbolt 50-inch flange at the top of the chamber stovepipe.
Right.
Are you saying that's where you resumed?
Yeah.
Right. I think that's what Mr. Peterson put to you.
That's what I wanted to know, that notwithstanding what is chronicled in your method statement,
Yeah.
you move around depending on the execution of the job.
In conjunction with Paria.
Yeah,
Right. Good.
that's fine, but it's not what I'm trying to get
Yeah.
before the commission is that this is not set in concrete. The
It
order,
can be changed with mutual agreement. Yeah.
and the reason it could be changed is that the top of your statement, if you could go to the top of the same method statement, it introduces itself with these opening words. all steps below shall only be carried out in full compliance with Paria's PTW system.
Correct.
So, notwithstanding what is contained in the method statement, what really governs is the PTW to execute.
With this in conjunction.
Yes, because those steps have to be completed, but not in that order. Isn't that so?
Right.
Right.
And
That
I'm
must be so.
saying,
And your company is of the view that Paria's PTW system is paramount. No pun intended. Because you're familiar with an email sent from your address, but in fairness to you, it was authored by Mr. Ahmad Ali concerning an incident when there was an unauthorized movement of a badge.
yeah,
Is this the email that you sent us earlier this morning?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Is there any reason why you can't see it?
No, sir, no.
No. Can we have it up on the screen then, please? Is there a particular passage you want to refer
Yes,
to?
the whole email is good for the commission for reading later on with respect to context, but because we're against time, this was an incident with the unauthorized moving of a badge contrary to a PTW.
yeah,
It was investigated by you and you took certain steps. And you recognize in answering one of Paria's questions, one of Paria's questions, question 3, when Mr. Archibald was asking whether he would introduce self-check or a checklist system to be implemented. So that is to guard against that kind of infraction. You see question 3? It's supposed to be on the front page. Question 3. You see Q3 and you see A3. A is the answer, Q3 is the question. But I could help you quickly. What your Mr. Ali was confirming to Paria is that a checklist can be created because Paria was suggesting a checklist as a method of guarding against infractions, whether that system is going to be implemented. And your Mr. Ali said, not you, your Mr. Ali, Paria's LMCS Mr. Ali, said a checklist can be created, but we feel that the permit itself already serves as the most powerful control document in the existing system. And another form recapping the same requirements as already documented, there is of little value.
yep. And
You accept, you agree with Mr. Ali, I think he's one of your senior persons. You agree with him? That the
I
permit-
agree with him.
Yeah, I agree with him.
Could I,
Your lawyer calls, he'll ask them to the clerk. I say against time. I don't want to.
okay.
Against some time. I'm going that to last. The rescue, I just want to get there. I know that the rescue, you said in answer to the chairman this morning, I think at about 3:50. When did you first know the men went missing? Around 2:50 p.m. on the 25th.
Around 3 o'clock. I'm not
Around 3
sure.
o'clock.
Yeah.
But by 3:15, you formed the view that they were in the pipe.
Correct.
Because all equipment going and all of that.
Yeah.
And you mustered up a quick rescue plan.
Correct.
Having mustered up that plan, what did you do with it?
I left it for the divers to activate, to execute the plan.
Anybody in particular?
Andrew Farah, Dexter Guerra, and a bunch of men on the barge.
I didn't hear that. Mr.
Andrew Farah and Dexter
Farah.
Guerra.
And Dexter
Guerra.
Guerra. They're both qualified divers on your
Sorry?
team? They're both qualified divers?
One is commercial, one is paddy.
Right, one's paddy and one's commercial. Yeah, thank you.
And you left the barge area.
I left, I went back ashore.
You said you got a call from Mr. Piper inviting you to come to the building, the shipping building.
I had a few calls from Mr. Piper.
You had a few calls from Mr. Piper.
Right.
Did
I
you
had
tell
a call
him?
from Mr. Piper while I was on the barge
Yes.
at 3:23,
Right.
where I told him what the status was on the barge.
Which is that I think the men are in the pipe.
Yeah.
Right. When next you spoke to him?
Probably about half an hour afterwards.
Right. When did you tell him about the details of your plan, the rescue plan?
I told him we were going to dive and get the men out. Whether I give him the details, I'm not sure, but I told him that we were going to get the men, rescue the men. Good. Sorry. Yeah, I said we were going to dive and get the men out of the pipe.
Right. Do you call around when you told him that?
That would be about 3:23.
Right. And did you execute the plan?
So we go in circles. I left the barge just after.
Also, you left it, okay. So you told Mr. Piper that you left a plan, you plan to dive.
Yeah, and the men were going to do it.
Right. But you didn't tell him the details of that rescue plan.
I said we were going to go into the pipe and get the men. The men were in the pipe. I told them the men were in the pipe. So the plan was to go in and get them out of it.
Right. You said in your witness statement that you told Miss Catherine Balkisoon. Our instructions are that you never told her about your plan.
I never told her about the plan. She was told about the plan about 4 times by me, by Dexter Guerra. At that stage, I detailed the plan.
At which stage?
When I spoke to Catherine, that would have been about after 6, somewhere around there.
Right.
Right? That's the first time I spoke to her, around 6 or after 6.
Right, so that I understand this, please. Mr. Ali, you told Mr. Piper before
Catherine.
before Catherine,
Yeah.
right?
I can't
And-
remember
and-
exactly what details I gave to Mr. Piper. I just told her the men.
Pause for a minute. I've got that bit. But you told Mr. Piper before Christopher Boudreaux
Yeah.
came out of the pipe,
Yeah, long before.
and you told Catherine after
Correct.
Mr. Boudreaux came out of the pipe.
Correct.
Have I got that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
You say you cannot recall the details you told Mr. Piper. I would suggest to you told him none. In your witness statement, you said you didn't tell him any details he didn't ask you. You recall saying that in the statement?
Show him the paragraph, please.
Paragraph 104, I will take you to immediately, but that's not the one I was first looking for. This is, which one? Supplemental. Paragraph 104 of your supplemental statement. You said, I did not speak to them about the rescue plan on Friday, and they did not ask for any details.
Right.
That
That didn't.
You were referring to Mr. Mustak and Mr. Piper.
Yeah. When I spoke to Piper, I said we were going to rescue them. I didn't give him a plan. I didn't explain to him how we were going to do it. At that time, most important in my mind was to get the men ready and go down in there. I was talking to Mr. Piper on the phone while I was talking to the men. I'm not sure exactly, but I know I told him we were going to get the men. Right? So the details of a plan I didn't give him, but I told him we were going to get the men.
When did you first give him the details of a plan, if any? Wasn't it Sunday?
Oh, Mr. Piper, from Saturday morning. Saturday, when I went to Paria, I was locked out of the gate. Mr. Piper eventually let me come in about 9 o'clock.
When you say, no, just now, wait, I can't let that.
Saturday
When
morning.
you say Mr. Piper eventually, that could create the impression that Mr. Piper was the person who locked you out.
Paria locked me out.
Right. So you
Right.
arrive at the gate and you won't give an admission.
I wouldn't give him admission.
Right. But don't say Mr. Piper he let you in.
Mr. Piper spoke to them and I was allowed to come in.
Right. So you call
Right.
Mr. Piper?
I called Mr. Piper.
Right. You
Right.
didn't do that when they arrived and they weren't getting in?
Sorry?
You did that when? Shortly after you arrived?
I tried
Call
a
Mr.
few
Piper?
times, but nobody was available on the phone.
Right. Okay. Once we don't get the impression that Mr. Piper did anything to keep you out of the company.
But Paria did that.
Well,
And the instruction was keep LMCS out.
well, I don't know. Mr. Ali, that's not in the statement.
No, I'm telling you now.
Don't make up things as we go along, please.
Say I'm making it up.
No.
I'm telling you what
Don't-
happened.
Well, don't add in things as we go along.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll have to get instructions and call you back to confront you.
Right.
So,
There is something in his statement about being held outside the gate
yes, but not,
by Paria.
no, not that Paria gave instructions not to let LMCS on the compound. That's a different.
Well, I appreciate that's slightly
There
different.
is on his statement that he was outside the gate and he wasn't admitted until Mr. Piper got involved.
Well,
That's it.
all right, one assumes there must have been some authority given for that to happen.
Well, I don't want to give evidence, but it's insulated.
No. It would be wrong to assume it was Mr. Piper, which you've made clear.
Right.
But somebody, presumably at Paria, must have given that instruction.
I don't know if instructions were given.
All right.
I'm telling you, you're going to find it in the statements. When you read all the statements, you'll see it there.
Well, I've seen it. Don't worry. But Mr. Peterson is putting to you that it wasn't Mr. Piper who was, as it were, instructing anyone to keep you out. Do you follow?
I
And that may
really
be so.
admitted to that.
And that may be so. All right. So
I was locked out.
you were locked out. I think we're clear about that.
Your plan to dive on Friday, did it consider the occurrence of a second Delta P factor?
No, because the line had stabilized at that stage. There was no external pressure on the plug. And we weren't going to interfere with the plug.
At which stage you discovered that the line had stabilized?
As soon as Andrew saw the bubbles stop coming out of the line.
What time was that?
That would have been before I even got to the barge,
Okay.
about 3:10, somewhere around there.
So you never considered that, not knowing whether the plug was fully holding, that there was not the possibility of an occurrence of a second event?
I was concerned that there were 5 people in that pipeline, and we were the only people that could help them out.
I understand that, Mr. Ali.
The line was stable. There was no imminent danger, no apparent danger. And the best option at the time was to go in and get them.
So you knew the plug was holding because bubbles weren't coming up?
No, I didn't know the plug was holding. At that stage, I didn't even consider where the plug was. All I know, by number 5, by number 6, everything had gone back to the way it was before the plug moved.
Right.
And we established that because we were deflating the plug, that's why the thing moved. In our rescue, there was no talk or even thought of interfering with any plug.
But was there consideration that the plug may have been in such
To
a
be
position?
honest with you, I
Yeah.
said I didn't even consider the plug in the line.
Okay.
As later in my statement, you will see, I only found out or figured out the plug was in the line on Saturday.
All right.
Yep. At that time, the consideration was there's nothing looking dangerous here. Let's go get them in.
Having discovered on Saturday that the plug was in fact in the pipe,
Yeah.
and having not considered the possibility of a second event, you would agree with me that your plan on Friday had built-in inherent risk.
Life has inherent risks.
I know that. I agree with you.
The consideration was 5 people needed saving in the pipeline, and we could see no immediate risk, and we're not going to leave them there, figuring and thinking of risk. Right?
Something I cannot understand. There is a statement from one of Kenson's witnesses on in the bundles, where he came ashore at around 1900 hours, which is 7 o'clock, with 5 empty tanks that were emptied or consumed by the rescue divers, and he came ashore to have them refilled. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware, and I don't think Mr. Dobson said that.
Okay.
Mr. Dobson saw some empty tanks, asked Andrew if you would like those to be refilled, and he took them to be refilled.
Okay.
Right, so I don't know what point you're trying to get at then over time.
I'm not getting at anything except that the statement says that 5 tanks were brought from the barge back to shore that were used by the rescue divers to be refilled. He waited for about an hour, I think.
And whose statement is that, sir?
One of the Kensons was...
So it wasn't Kazim Ali's statement?
No.
No, I can't help what Mr. Dobson put down.
Mr. Ali, I know it's not your statement, but you're in the box and we have to give you an opportunity that if you don't know about it,
I don't know about it.
Well, thank you.
I think Mr. Dobson's program, there, you can be answered.
Mr. Ali, before we are wrapping up shortly, but let me explain something to you. All we are doing is that if you are there and you know something, we're giving you an opportunity to either comment on it, say you don't know about it, or dispute it. That's all it's about. So that's why I asked you if you are aware. Mr. Ali, you did say that you had experience before of diving into a pipe.
I did.
Yes. I think at paragraph 56 of your amplified statement and 154. But that was a 50-inch pipe, wasn't it? It wasn't a 30.
50-inch pipe, yeah.
Did it have oil or was it a clean pipe?
It didn't have oil. Neither did the riser 36.
Right. Neither did the riser 36. Right.
When we were looking at doing the dive. Your film would show that.
Beg your pardon?
Your film, the boroscope, shows that it was clear. Right. Andrew found out when he went in the chamber.
So you all had access to the boroscope?
No. But I'm telling you, you would find out that. And when Andrew went into the chamber, there was no oil at the top of the riser.
Yeah. In that 50-inch pipe, it was big, it was large enough for you to turn in it, wasn't it?
No.
Okay. The tribunal will decide.
But you know you don't need to turn in the pipe to get out.
You'll explain that to the chairman if you have. Right. Where's the email? What did I do? There's the email that I went to already. Yes. Not this. Mr. Ali, I want to take it to the Sunday, the 27th,
Yeah.
where you said that an email was to be sent to you and it wasn't sent. After you had a discussion with respect to a rescue plan, the Sunday.
I said the film was supposed to be sent to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
via an email.
Yeah.
Right. That plan that you developed, that you sent it to Paria at around 2:19.
Yeah.
In fact, it's covered in paragraph 143 of your witness statement, where you said you email a written plan specifically dealing with the removal of the bottles at around 2:19.
Correct.
Right. Could you look, and the email has attached it documents. And the email could be found at page 5875.
Different numbers.
Yeah, I had to make sure. It's submission bundle. All right, that's it.
Is
Yes,
that the
yes,
document
Mr.
you're talking
Chairman.
about? Yes.
Yes. That email, could you scroll along and show us the subject? No, the other way. Down. Scuba tank, oh, you have it. Scuba tank, right. It doesn't speak anything about the men.
No.
The documents that were attached to that email as part of the plan. I think the method statement, which could be found at page 1110 of the core bundle. Could we go to that page 1110 of the core bundle? That method statement at the second line was prepared to deal with entry into the riser pipeline to retrieve 3 scuba tanks. Right. Again, the method statement does not mention any rescue of the men. It mentioned tanks.
Let's get to the point.
No, Mr. Ali, I have been very, I understand your predicament, I understand your position. I have something to do, and I've been very respectful.
Will I explain the email?
Answer me, and then you could explain to your counsel.
Yes, it said about
It's about 3 scuba tanks. Yeah. At the meeting, and the audio is in the bundle, I could play it. Mm-hmm. At that meeting in Paria, you did indicate to Mr. Piper and Mr. Mustak in that meeting, the audio is filed, that you don't think those guys were alive at that stage. You remember saying that?
I said that. Yeah.
So I don't need to play it because I'm trying to avoid doing that.
This is on the Sunday.
Sunday, yes.
Yeah. In the meeting in the afternoon.
In the
Sunday,
afternoon,
yes.
I think that was in the morning.
In the morning, there was a meeting. The evening meeting was the plan that was submitted, but the meeting was around 10 a.m. on the Sunday. I'm going to this. And this is my last question, Mr. Ali. Sorry to take you back there, but I had missed it, and my colleague here pointed out to me that I have it highlighted, but I missed it. I want to take you back to page 9837.
Well, I think before you do that, you said you were going to give him an opportunity to explain what he meant by the email together with these documents.
No, I told him his lawyer will do that. I just told him, I point out to him the fact that the documents speak only about scuba tank and not persons.
Yes, but he did say he wanted to, and I thought you said you were going to permit him to do so. Well, I'm
Well,
certainly
go ahead.
willing to do so. what did you want to say about the email?
Right, so we were shown, we went and we asked to do a dive, and we were told there were bottles blocking the pipeline. Right? Sorry. So we were told that there were bottles blocking the pipeline. So we got a look of just a little piece of the film showing us what looked like two bottles in the line. And we said we could get that out, no problem. Yeah. The reason why we wanted to take it out, as we were saying in the whole meeting there, if we take the bottles out, we can send the camera in. Paria's position was the bottles were blocking there and we couldn't get the camera in. So I said, let's take the bottles out, send the camera in, make sure the men are not alive before we do anything further. So that was just to address that one thing, to get the camera inside and show that the men were.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Did you not also explain, I think, to Mr. Mustaq Mohammed, that in the event of the retrieval of the body, they didn't want the tanks to damage the bodies? I know I didn't want to go there.
Sorry, understand.
Do you recall telling Mr. Mohammed one of the reasons you also wanted to remove the tanks is that if they were retrieving the bodies, that they don't want the tanks to do damage to the bodies? Right. You did tell him that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't want to go there, but in fairness to you, you have to.
You understand it was to get the camera in, do you?
Yes, also.
Okay.
Also. Yes. Finally, page 9837. Of the core bundle. No, bundle of submissions. That's the bundles. That's the manufacturer's specifications, the warning at the last page. Yes, Ali, and it says this. Before attempting to remove any pipe plug, always make sure all back pressures or test pressures have been completely released and that there are no forces working against the pipe plug before deflating. If there is still back/test pressure against the plug, when it deflates, it can shoot out of the pipe like a projectile or like a project-based projectile. Did you have your men check the back pressure before deflating that plug?
No, because at that time we still, I'm sorry, because we had a liquid leg, or because we were supposed to have a liquid leg.
That's it.
There was no way to pressure.
If they had followed the manufacturer's specifications and warning and checked for that back pressure, they would have realized the live issue of a latent delta event.
The method of installing the plug.
That must be a yes,
okay.
Mr. Ali. That must be a yes. I know it's an unfortunate situation, but that would have possibly alerted them to the danger that was waiting. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It would have taken but minutes, presumably, to have opened the valve at riser number 5. Where you've shown us where you were allowing the air pressure to come out. If you'd opened that valve before removing the plug, what would have happened? With hindsight.
In hindsight?
Yes.
We would have known that the pressure wasn't equal.
You'd have known. Yeah. So, to be blunt about it, had that valve been opened at riser number 5, this would not have happened.
I don't agree, sir.
You don't agree?
If it was open, it would have been worse.
You know, if it had been opened at riser number 5, where you check for the pressure,
yeah,
as you told us before, As you told us before, when they were pumping air in, at the conclusion of each of those episodes, you check for the pressure differential by allowing any air to escape, correct?
They're trying to contradict you, but you did say if we had opened, if it was open, it wouldn't have happened.
No. If you had done that before you removed the plug.
Okay, yes, I agree with you.
That's what I mean. I'm sorry if I didn't make myself clear.
Well, even then, if we had opened it, we would realize the pressure was not equal.
Right. How would you have known?
Because there would been zero pressure there, and you would have had 7 pounds where we were actually in the chamber. So you would have had a differential of 7 pounds. But if it was open while we were moving the plug, it would have been a worse case.
No.
There would have been no.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. What I'm asking you, in pursuance to what Mr. Peterson has said.
Sorry, Chief, I'm not.
Yes. In pursuance to what Mr. Peterson said, it's quite important that I understand this one.
Yeah.
If you or one of your staff had opened the valve at riser number 5, the other end of the pipe, where you told us you were testing for differential earlier when you were blowing air in, if you'd have opened that valve, can we assume it would have let air out and potentially fluid out?
But that's what I'm saying, sir. That would have made the situation worse. Open there would have just tested it and told me the pressure was different. But once it was open, what would have happened when it was closed and sealed?
Yeah.
It would have created a back pressure as the plug was moving and slow down the plug. If it was freely open, the plug might have just gone all the way out.
No. I think you're misunderstanding what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Before you moved any plug at all, before you got your staff to do anything to the mechanical plug or the inflatable plug, before they touched it, right?
Yeah.
Had you opened the valve at riser number 5, would that have told you that there was a differential?
I agree to that. It would have told me that we had a pressure difference.
Right. And then you'd have been able to act on that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would have, yeah.
Right. So is it as blunt as this? Had you done that, this would not have happened.
Correct.
Thank you. Anybody? Yes.
Good afternoon.
Introduce yourself,
Yes.
please, so that everyone knows who you are.
Yes, good afternoon. Mr. Hussein Shah on behalf of the Seamen and Waterfront Workers Trade Union. Good afternoon, Mr. Ali. Right here.
Would it be too inconvenient for you to stand when you're asking questions? Because then everyone can see you, because I can barely see you as you're sitting down at the back row.
I can try, but these documents are quite heavy.
Oh, right. Well, do your best and prop them perhaps on the ones you're not using.
Sure. So you are a mechanical engineer by profession. Sorry, marine engineer by profession.
Correct.
Good. I want to take you to paragraph 28 of your witness statement. That is located at page 484 of the witness statement bundle. So just to be fair to you, at paragraph 28, you speak to a pressure test that was ultimately abandoned by Paria. You see that?
28, yeah?
Yeah, paragraph 28.
Could you help me out? I'm not hearing you.
Is this better?
Yep.
Sure. So at paragraph 28, you speak to a pressure test that was foregone or abandoned by Paria. Are you seeing that?
Yep.
What is this pressure test you're speaking about at this paragraph? What did it involve?
That was a test on the flange that was welded in the chamber.
Sure. I want to take you now to page 573 of the witness statement bundle. And this deals with the scope of works attached to the tender documents. So if you can go down to 8.4, we see pressure testing.
Yeah.
Can you explain what paragraph A means, 8.4A? Yeah. So the paragraph that starts with the piping shall be tested in accordance with AP1 RP1110. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
What is that about?
Well, actually, for testing, pressure testing the pipeline, right? In this case, we are pressure testing the well on the flange.
Two separate things.
Sure.
One is testing the weld. This is testing the pipeline itself.
Yeah, that's right.
Pressure in the pipeline.
So why is it that the pressure testing set out at paragraph 8.4 was not conducted? And you could go ahead and answer that. Sorry, I'm asking why the pressure testing at paragraph 8.4 was not conducted. What?
Not conducted. The pipe was egg-shaped, so the rig for testing the well couldn't be installed.
But you just said that this pressure testing is different from the pressure testing you spoke about with respect to the weld related to paragraph 28 of your witness statement. Are they one and the same?
No, the whole objective there was to test the well, not the pipeline.
Sure, but
So even though it says here the pipeline, it was understood to be the weld between the flange and the pipeline.
sure. So you're saying that the pressure testing set out here relates solely to the weld, even though it's
Yeah.
okay. Fair enough. Now I want to take you to paragraph 26 of your witness statement. The amplified one. So that will be at page 482. So at paragraph 26, you say that your son, Yusuf Henry, and Christopher Boudram were PADI certified divers with respect to open water scuba.
Yeah.
And that Rishi Nagasa and Faisal Kurban were commercial divers.
Correct. And Andrew Farah.
Well, yes. But with respect to these divers, with the exception of Andrew Farah, did they undergo any further training beyond their certifications?
Are you who are you addressing there?
These divers, Yusuf Henry, your son, Christopher Boudram, Rishi Nagasa, and Faisal Kurban.
And the question.
So let me ask it a different way. Did LMCS provide any further training to these divers beyond their ordinary certification?
No, I sent them for the commercial, and I sent them for the PADI as well. But beyond that,
So what sort of training did these divers have with respect to operating in an environment in the oil and gas industry, dealing with pipelines?
experience in working in the oil field.
Okay, and where did they get this experience?
In the oil field, right there.
With LMCS?
In Pointe-à-Pierre.
With LMCS?
With LMCS.
Okay, what sort of training did LMCS provide to prepare them for those operations?
Not for that operation especially.
But in general, did LMCS, whether by not anything with a certificate or anything, but by experience or
Yeah, by experience, and that's why we started training up some of the men in the commercial to spread it out to the guys down below.
and who conducted that training?
It would have been Faisal and Andrew would have been. So when they went and got their commercial,
Yes.
then they would spread the training amongst them.
Sure. And did that training involve rescue operations?
Not specifically, no.
Okay. And did that training involve a situation whereby, or a situation where divers would be trapped inside a pipeline?
No.
Okay. Now I want to go to page 589 of your witness statement.
Can I have some indication of how long you think you're going to be? I did ask this question at the
Sure.
resumption after lunch, and you didn't say anything. So
I think about not more than 20 minutes, Chair.
I'm going to limit it to 20 minutes.
Sure. So we're at page 589, and the listing or the table you see here relates to prior experience going back 5 years of LMCS. Yeah,
The Paria and Petrotrin.
good. Did any of these operations involve diving into a pipeline?
No.
All right. Now I want to go to paragraph 28 of the witness statement of Andrew Farrer. And that will be at page.
Well, just a minute. We've heard evidence that Mr. Boudram says he did dive into a pipeline.
Yes.
Are you aware of that?
Andrew?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, Christopher Boudram. So
Yeah.
in his oral testimony, Christopher Boudram said while employed by LMCS, he was involved in a dive where he was required to go into the pipeline because carrying out the works there was safer.
Are you sure it's LMCS, you said?
Well, he didn't say LMCS. Okay. Okay, well, fair enough. So paragraph 28 of Andrew Farrer's witness statement. That's at page 447 of the witness statement bundle. So you see there, Mr. Farrer saying that he has dived in a pipeline before.
Correct.
Has LMCS conducted any works whereby divers were required to go into pipelines?
This, not LMCS. This job was for a company called Co, and we were all working on that job.
Sure.
Andrew, Christopher, myself.
Sure. So you all had experience.
Yeah.
When it came to diving into pipelines.
We
yes?
did, yeah.
And in that experience, was there anything in particular that prepared you for emergency scenarios which may arise?
But what we did, we took the precautions that tied off a rope so we could be pulled back out to find our way out. And we went in feet first. Anytime we dive into a situation where you don't have total access, you go in feet first so you can swim out or be dragged out the other way. And that's a precaution that would be,
sure.
anytime we dive in, that's what we would be using.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Sorry?
Is there anything else you want to add to that? Fair enough. So you had experience diving into pipelines.
Correct.
You had experience dealing with potential dangers which may have arisen when it comes to diving into pipelines, yes?
Correct, yeah.
Whether through LMCS or through your own rights or through your diver's own rights.
Yeah.
Yeah? So now I want to go back.
I did say
yes.
I myself dived into the pipeline as well. So I had experience.
Sure. And you're a diver of how many years experience?
1981, I think.
And you have been commercially diving for how long?
Not commercially, diving in the industry. I was advanced paddy.
Sure. So I want to take you now to page 791 of the witness statement bundle. This is the site safety plan. And I want to go to page 809 of that plan. So this is a plan, sir, you would have submitted to Paria.
Correct.
Yes?
Correct. Yeah.
And Paria would have approved this plan in the consideration of your bid.
Well, everything we did in Paria had to approve.
Excellent.
Just a minute, I need to find my place. Just a minute.
Sorry. 809.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're looking at paragraph 8.14. So just to recap, this is the site safety plan. And under the heading of diving operations, the second to last bullet point, standby divers to be present and suited up to render assistance throughout the dive.
Yeah.
Now, on the 25th of February, 2022, standby divers were available.
Correct.
And those standby divers, one of which being Andrew Farah, they were commercial divers.
Correct.
And he was trained in pipeline operations.
Correct.
He was able to enter into pipelines.
Correct.
And beyond Andrew Farah, further on during the day, additional divers arrived.
That's correct. Yeah.
And those divers came equipped with equipment to allow them to enter into the pipelines and get to, I think, at least 300 feet into the pipeline.
Correct. Well, to be honest, they came at different stages. The first set that came,
Yeah.
it came with more scuba gear. And then
Yeah.
just after 6, we had people with
Yeah.
surface supplied. So as the day went on, we got more and more equipment and more
Yeah.
men.
But Paria would have been aware through your plan that in the event an emergency occurred, the primary responsibility or the primary body or persons who would effect a next rescue operation would be LMCS.
Correct.
And that is in fact what you did.
Correct.
And when you spoke to Colin Piper ought to have known through your safety plan that you would be pursuing a rescue operation. And then you in fact told him you're going to get your boys. Yes?
Correct, yeah.
Now I want to take you to page 818. This is the emergency, what's the name of it? Sorry. The emergency response plan. So the emergency response plan starts at 816 and we're going to 818. So we see, right, stop, go back up. In the event of an emergency, of any emergency in the hyperbaric chamber, and we're going to the last bullet point. You with me?
Yeah.
Sorry, trying to be economical on time. Emergency assistance available from additional divers on site. You see that?
Which one, sir? Yeah.
So we'll look at the screen. See, in the event of any emergency in the hyperbaric chamber, and you see a series of bullet points.
Okay, good, yeah.
So I'm looking at the last bullet point. Emergency assistance available from additional divers on site.
Correct.
Again, this is a document which was in Paria's possession.
Correct.
And LMCS had the facilities at the time
We did.
with the additional divers to conduct emergency assistance or to provide emergency assistance.
We did, yeah.
But ultimately, Paria prevented you from doing that.
They did.
And the Coast Guard prevented you from doing that.
They did as well.
Now, did you have any reason to doubt the structural integrity of the pipeline?
Of the pipeline?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
In fact, LMCS was contracted to fix or to remove and replace the defective portion of the pipeline.
Correct, yeah.
So if there was problem, if there were other areas of the pipeline defective, logic dictates that a tender would have gone out to repair those portions as well.
It would have, yeah.
Thank you. Anything else?
Speculation and logic, the same thing.
If you have an objection.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
and make it.
I don't know how, well, which interest my friend is seeking, but suggesting that there are other defects in the line, or if there were, that there would be, it's highly speculative, and it's casting inferentially some liability or some responsibility on Paria with respect to some aspect in the pipeline. Does not arise, issue of other issues in the pipeline that didn't go to tender. So I don't know where my friend is going with this.
Mr. Zain?
But the point of the question was essentially to get from Mr. Ali that they were there to repair defective portion of the pipeline. Insofar as relates to everything else, I can accept the objection from there.
Rephrase the question then.
Sure. So, Mr. Ali, LMCS was contracted to repair, remove, and replace a defective portion of the pipeline.
Correct.
And you had no reason to doubt the structural integrity of the remainder of the pipeline.
None whatsoever.
Thank you. Chair, I believe Ms. Alfonso has just a few questions, and she will be confined within the same time frame.
Much less.
Thank you.
Who's going to do what? I thought we'd resolved this tag team event. In fact, I think we've got correspondence about it somewhere, or
Yes, indeed. So we did try to document what the position would be, which was that Mr. Hussein Shah and I would address different aspects of the material. I don't want to say evidence, of the material. And we promised to be economical, and I promised to have far less questions than Mr.
You have 5 minutes, and I really do want you to resolve this. It's not going to happen again, all right? You have to, I'm afraid, work it out between you. One council can do the prep work, the other one can do the questions. I've been a King's Counsel for a long time, and I've had my juniors prepare it for me. We know how it works, but I'm not going to have a tag team working on preparing and then using their skills, whatever it might be, to cross-examine each witness. So this is the last time I'll permit it, please. You decide between you which one of you are going to ask questions of each witness, rather than both of you. All right, this is the last time I'll permit you. You have 5 minutes.
I take certainly, Mr. Chairman, we would work it out from today. Even if it's somebody.
You're using up your 5 minutes. I suggest you ask the questions.
Okay, well, I'll try not to jump too far. Mr. Ali, are you hearing me? Thank you very much. My name is Nairi Alfonso, Mr. Ali. You said you admit that you are, or you've said that you are a marine engineer by training, yes?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. You would have read the INCO, let me make sure I pronounce it correctly, the INCO Tech Limited report?
I would have, yeah.
Yes, okay. So I won't take you through that. But you would have read that the root cause identified for the Delta P. You would have read that part of the report, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, let me put it to you. When we were here on another occasion, Mr. Michael, we would have given certain evidence, seated where you are, to the effect that one of the reasons that Paria, let me not say him, Paria did not want LMCS's divers, or any other divers for that matter, to go down into the pipe, was his fear, or Paria's fear, beg your pardon, Paria's fear, that there could be a repeat Delta P incident. Do you have any position on that? Have anything to say with respect to that position advanced by Mr. Wee or Wee?
A repeat Delta P.
Is that in your training and experience? Is that possible?
It is possible. There's external forces on the system. But at this stage, the pipeline conditions had stabilized. And unless somebody went and interfered with the plug, or we all know the line was isolated, so you couldn't switch on a pump or anything elsewhere to create the situation again. So once the first incident happened and the pressures equalized, and well, like I said, we didn't know we didn't consider where the plug was in the first day. Right, so that wasn't there, but the system was, there was no flow in or out of the pipeline. So we assumed that. The next day, again, that came up. And I dealt with that. And I said, we will fill the riser at number 5 with an equal amount of liquid as we had at number 6, thereby stabilizing the line. At that stage, I knew there was a plug in the line and the plug was intact.
So you think it unlikely that another delta P could have occurred because the pressures had already equalized?
It wouldn't have had, it wouldn't have done.
Okay. Mr. Ali, you would have.
Before you move on, just one moment.
Sorry.
If there was the prospect of a second delta P before Mr. Boudram came out of the pipe, was that alleviated at all by the fact that Mr. Boudram came out of the pipe?
It would have, because he would have had to pass through some kind of pressurized bubble or something like that.
And given the information that he gave you, that they were all together,
yeah,
at least 4 of them were, did you have any doubts at that time as to a second delta P after he'd come out of the pipe?
No.
Thank you. Sorry, carry on. I'll add a minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Before the lunch break, Mr. Ali, we were showed a particular map by Paria's attorneys. You recall that?
Yeah, showing the depth of water.
Okay. Is that a bathymetric survey?
It was, yeah.
Thank you. And that bathymetric survey would show you the depth of the water
Correct.
in the area which you saw on the screen, yes?
It wouldn't show you what's under the seabed, though.
Thank you very much. It wouldn't show you the pipeline necessary or the configuration of the pipeline.
Not unless it's on top of the mud.
Okay, so it's showing you depths of water and
correct.
perhaps topography, if that's the right word, when it's under the water.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. You would have read, Mr. Ali, the Association of Diving Contractors International Inc. report. That is Mr. Newsom who signed that.
Yeah.
And you would have noted that he made some comments about having PADI certified only divers participate in this, well, let me call it exercise or this job.
Yeah.
And you would have seen he made a comment with regard to divers being tethered and divers being supplied with surface air.
Yeah.
Do you have any position with that, Mr. Ali? Do you think that the better way to do this is if your divers were commercially, all of them were commercially certified and they were wearing commercial gear rather than what, well, scuba equipment?
Okay, that's about 3 questions in one.
Sorry, I'm sorry,
So-
I'm doing you a disservice because I'm
Yes.
trying to hurry. So I'm
It's
terribly sorry.
it's a fair point he's making. You have to select
Yeah.
which ones you want to use.
Okay,
So the first question is whether or not you've seen Mr. Newsom's report, and you've already told us you had.
Right.
So he makes an observation about the people working in the chamber being tethered in some way to the chamber.
Yeah, correct.
Did you see that?
I can see advantage and disadvantage.
I'm sure there are disadvantages to being tethered. Nobody wants to be tethered. We're not dogs. On the other hand, it might make some sense, mightn't it, if they had been tethered?
Whether it would have helped in this situation, as Christopher said, it could have strangled you being tethered and been causing the vertex.
Could have been worse.
Yeah.
Difficult to see it being worse, given that 4 people died.
Sorry?
I said it's difficult to see it being much worse, given that 4 people died. Obviously, Mr. Boudram didn't, but
Well, to be, the 4 people didn't die from the incident. They died from the lack of action after.
well, we had to have the incident first. I take your point, but we had to. The question is whether or not you think, with the benefit of hindsight now, it might have been better if they had been tethered.
I'll say, weighing it, they probably would have a better chance of drawing them out I still say there's advantage and disadvantage, but it might have been better.
So I asked the question I asked you earlier. Now that you know what happened and you have much more information than you did before, do you think today you would make those people be tethered rather than untethered?
Today, I'd make sure we don't have a Delta P, sir.
Yeah, well, that's true. But even with the possibility of a Delta P, would they not be better being tethered? That's the question.
Possibly, yeah.
Do you think that now you would do that?
Yes, I
Thank you.
would do that.
That was the second question. Third question, I think, was whether or not you thought that you'd be assisted by surface air if they were commercial divers, having some separate tube that leads to their mouth so that they're breathing that air rather than the air that was in the hyperbaric chamber. I think that was the
Yes,
essence of it.
yes, indeed, Mr. Chair.
I personally don't see how it could help, but anyway, you answer the question, not me.
I don't think there's a problem with the air in the hyperbaric chamber. I think you meant that if they had the tether, the surface air, they would still get air down in the pipeline.
Yes, would they have been able to take the surface air with them into the pipeline?
Yeah, well, that's the surface supply there.
No. Given that we had a Delta P and they were sucked into the pipeline, if they were using a surface to chamber pipe in order to breathe, would they have been assisted by having that, having been sucked into the pipeline?
Again, it would have been beneficial if they survived the trip down with the surface air system, because then they would have kept on breathing there for a much longer
It
time.
would rather depend on the length of the pipe, wouldn't it? That they were breathing through, not the length of the pipe they were in.
But it would. But even in the swirling around, they could have become tangled up with it.
All right, thank you very much. There are
So,
your answers.
Okay.
It would help them if they survived the trip and they had it.
Yeah.
And then we could use that to draw them back out.
All right.
So, like I said, there's advantages and disadvantages.
You have your answers.
I just want for my clarification, Mr. Ali, is there a difference between the surface air, which would be with a tube and a helmet, yes? Or would it be somehow, okay, so there's a tethering with like a rope so that if you went down into the pipeline, there would be a way to pull you out, yes?
Correct, yeah.
And you could have also a tube giving you oxygen, air as well.
That's what we talk about surface supply.
Okay, but
right,
is it two different things or one thing? I don't want to confuse you or myself. Is it two different things that you could be tethered, like say with a rope, and then you could also have a tube, for argument's sake, with air from the surface?
Right, you could have the scuba set and you tether with a rope.
Okay, so
with the surface supply, the tubing acts as the rope with the tether.
So following from what the Honorable Chairman said, if you had an opportunity once again in hindsight, would the safer thing to be tethered with a rope? Let me say it like tethered with a rope so that you could be retrieved.
He's already said that. He's already said that. He's already drawn the distinction between the two.
Safer to be tethered with a rope and even safer to have
I think we move on now, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Ali, by Sunday afternoon, the meeting, I'm just going to ask you one more question. By the Sunday afternoon, when this plan to remove the 3 tanks that you mentioned was being put forward, by that time, was there another plan that Paria had explained to you by which the line would have been, I want to say pumped, flushed in order to recover the bodies of the...
They weren't talking rescue, they were talking about recover.
Okay. So is it that you wanted the tanks to be removed because the plan that was put forward at that time by Paria was to flush the lines?
No, we were still talking rescue.
You or Paria?
LMCS.
Okay, I'm sorry. Rescue. LMCS was talking rescue.
Rescue.
But was Paria on the Sunday afternoon when you had this meeting that you referred us to? Wasn't Paria talking about recovery and flushing the line in order to recover the bodies?
Yes.
Right?
They had gone to recovery, even though they pretended they were engaging us in rescue.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ali.
Mr. Ali, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for coming. First of all, I want to say condolences for the loss of your son and your entire dive team. You know, can imagine the effects it have on your workplace. Whilst we have this up here, I think we already established that Delta P was not identified in the risk assessment or hazard identification here.
Correct.
And I offer you that an emergency response plan, it really comes out powerfully out of a quality risk assessment, yes?
Sorry, I didn't catch your last.
An emergency response plan, that's why I'm addressing this here. Emergency response plan is something that would come out powerfully if a risk assessment, a quality risk assessment was done. It speaks to the emergency response plan.
Correct.
Right. So I want to address here and just clarify when the gentleman indicated that this was a pipeline. The emergency response plan here identified was for vessel, the hyperbaric chamber, and event of emergency whilst underwater. It was never intended for rescue within a pipeline.
No.
No, because the risk assessment didn't drive
I
it.
didn't call that.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, you didn't say anything either.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately in the washroom when you ask the question, but I shan't be very long. And I apologize.
Right.
So,
Very
shall
well.
we start the countdown now then? Thank you so much. Good afternoon, sir. Of course, just like you
Introduce yourself,
yes,
please.
Prakash Ramada, representing the interests of the family, Kurban, and of course, the daughter of Yusuf Henry. Like the commissioner, I too, we all sympathize with your loss. You lost your only son. Is that accurate? Yes. Now, what I'm most interested in is to find out, of course, the accident occurred. That is behind us. This is tombstone hearing. I know you're not hearing me as well. Yeah. We are interested in finding out exactly how the accident occurred to prevent possible recurrence. Okay, that's one aspect.
Yeah.
We call it a tombstone hearing. The other aspect is, in terms of the rescue, which my clients, their families are most interested in. Around 3 o'clock, everyone knew that a disaster had occurred.
Correct.
Yes. You had plans in place. You had plans in place.
Correct. Yeah.
You had manpower in place.
We did.
Yes. When was the first time that you saw or observed any Paria personnel on the scene?
On the scene.
On the scene. At
On
the
the
site.
scene.
Define scene.
Yes.
Yeah, on
Where
the
the accident or incident occurred.
So Berth 6.
Berth 6. Thank you so much,
Right.
Chairman.
When I got out on the site, there were about 4 Kingston Paria people.
No, hold on. We have to make a distinction between Kenson and Paria. And there's a reason for that. I shall come to it. Paria. Who did you know from Paria that would have been present when you first saw them?
No one. No one.
No one. When was it the first time that you saw anyone from Paria itself on site?
I didn't.
You never saw any Paria personnel?
Well, to be fair,
At the time, up to the time you left the site?
yeah, up to the
Correct.
time I left.
And what time would that have been?
That would have been between 3:30, 3:45.
Right. What time did you return to the site?
I didn't.
You did not?
No.
You were at a meeting, and forgive me, Chairman. Yes. You went to a meeting with Paria personnel
Right.
on shore.
On Saturday and Sunday. I
No,
spent-
we're talking Friday evening.
no. Phone contact on Friday.
Phone contact.
Because Mr. Piper was in St. Augustine at the time, and there didn't appear to be anybody at what they call the ICT.
I see. So as far as you are concerned, the person who was point person in terms of in complete control, apart from MCS, but in relation to Paria or Kenson, the most senior person would have been Mr. Piper. Is that accurate?
Correct, yeah.
Yes. When did you first see Mr. Piper at or around Paria's premises?
On Saturday,
No, yeah, Saturday morning. Now, you told
About
us something
10
very
o'clock.
interesting. You said that you believe that you were locked out. Is that accurate?
I was locked out.
How long were you waiting at the gate as the father of a victim and as the man in charge of LMCS? How long did you have to wait?
It's
at the
about 3 hours shortly after 6 I arrived there.
Around 3 hours.
Correct.
And the person, as far as you're aware, who authorized your presence or your admission was Mr. Piper.
Well, that's the one I called
No,
and got
good.
admittance.
At that point in time, who was looking after LMCS's business at Berth 6? At the time you were locked out.
I had Dexter Guerra and Andrew Farah.
Do you know why it is that no one entered the water shortly after 3 o'clock with a view to going into the pipe? Do you know why it was that no one entered the pipe with a view to rescuing shortly after 3 o'clock?
As far as LMCS is concerned, we were stopped
By whom?
by the technician working. They pulled the permit
Yeah.
and said,
Hold. I want to hear this. They pulled a permit?
yeah,
What does that mean? So that all of us could understand what that means.
well, normally, the same permit to work that you have.
Right?
Right?
So it was cancelled. In other words, you couldn't do. I just want to hustle up here.
Yeah. They
Who
took
pulled
away the
that
permit
permit?
and said we had no permit to work. And that
Who
would have been
said this?
Houston Mahadar Singh. Yeah.
Working for whom?
And he would have been Ken Sumoka working for Paria.
Oh my goodness. Now, you have been in the business for many, many years, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
The progenitor of Paria was Petrotrin. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah.
In fact, my understanding is that we had world-class personnel working there with greatest expertise. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes. When this incident occurred, some of the most senior men, of course, were no longer working with Paria. Is that accurate?
Correct. Apart
Yes.
from Piper, who would have been there.
Apart from Piper.
Correct.
So persons who would have been experienced in the art or in the practice of recovery and so, or rescue, would no longer with Paria. Is that accurate?
Well, so it is now. Yeah.
Yes. Now, hindsight is 20/20 vision, and we all learn from it, and we are grateful for the opportunity to be able to learn from it. Now, you having lost your son, well, when I say lost, he was a victim of the accident at the time.
Correct.
When did you personally give up hope that he was alive?
I'd say Sunday sometime.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Did you wish to have any rescue effort from Friday afternoon? Yes or no?
From Friday afternoon till long after, I felt some of them were there. But until I was sure there was no one alive, there was a rescue in my mind.
Thank you. Now, you appreciate anything to do with water, underwater, or even above it. There are inherent risks, as we've all been hearing.
Correct, yeah.
But there comes a moment when you have to weigh in balance the likelihood of life being saved to the likelihood of life being in peril. You agree with that?
Correct, yeah.
At 6 o'clock or thereabouts, we understand that Christopher Boudram miraculously was retrieved from the pipeline.
Correct.
5 o'clock.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Certainly makes it even better. So by 5 o'clock, still daylight, do you know, well, they said you were not present, but you had personnel from the LMCS there, ready, equipped, and prepared to go in. You agree with that?
Yeah.
Michael Kurban, you know he's a certified commercial diver?
I paid for that.
Sorry?
I paid for his certificate.
Of course. Do you know he was also trained in what we call close quarter diving?
Correct.
Specifically for diving into pipelines?
Well, that's what I did. Yeah.
You knew, because you had been speaking with the families, and I want to thank you for that at least. And try to give support there and then. to get men, equipment, and opportunity available to save not just your son, but your other co-workers' lives. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah.
In fact, tell us, because this is important, they were like brothers, all of them,
Correct.
including your son, Mr. Kurban. I shan't go through all the names. I know it's very difficult. So I do not mean to do this, but I need to make it very clear, because we need to know at some stage or the other who is liable, first of all, for the accident. Okay?
Well, that's not what we're here for. And I am going to constrain you from asking questions. And you've gone far enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so can you move on, please?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Farah and Mr. Guerra, as you've indicated, were available since around shortly after 3 o'clock.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, the pipeline, as the chairman had so graciously allowed, the horizontal part was under the seabed cover. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
You could not and did not know at the time.
It wasn't visible. No.
Right. You could not and did not know at the time that it was not completely horizontal.
Correct.
Yes. Now we're hearing a lot about pressure differentials. Yeah. And the issue of the plug being removed, whether by failure or by
design.
On one end, there's a plug on one side at Berth 6. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah.
And you have described now pumping air into this pipeline to push its content, meaning water, oil, or whatever, out of it. Is that also accurate? But you also said something very interesting, that at 5, there was a valve somewhere.
Correct.
Yeah. That valve, anybody check to see whether there was a failure of that valve to create any differential in the pressure? But it was not under your remit. That's Paria's valve. Is that accurate?
Just a moment. I'm not sure I can understand what you're actually asking.
Sorry.
If the valve isn't working, just think of your car tire. If the valve fails in some way, lets the air out, it's going to do the exact reverse of what you're suggesting, as far as I can see.
No, with all due respect, I don't know enough, and that's why I'm asking.
Well, I think we all, the rest of us, might know by now that if you open the valve, it's going to let air out rather than in. Unless there was a vacuum on the inside.
Thank you so much. So, and that is why, Mr. Ali, you said something earlier, that it would have been worse if there was an opening at 5. Is that what you said? Tell us what you mean by that.
This is not for checking the pressure now.
This is what?
Riser was open and the plug moved, there would be no back pressure building up to stop the plug.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's what you asked, sir?
Yes. Yeah. So there was a greater likelihood of the plug moving away from where it was originally placed. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah.
And that's it. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Mirage.
Ms. Sally Kamini Pasat Mirage for LMCS. I'd like to follow up from this morning's questioning, where you indicated that there were some diagrams that you would have referred to.
Correct.
You recall that when you said you would have seen it? Okay, so I understand that I have emailed those documents to the commission. It was previously disclosed to the commission, but I don't think it has found its way in the bundles. So those has since been supplied. Have a look at the documents being supplied.
Is this in our original supplied material online?
It's part of a list of documents that was supplied by LMCFs to the commission, but it's not part of the bundle. It's not within the bundle of the documents.
So it was on a list, but not actually supplied.
Not actually supplied.
Right. And
Yes.
have you got copies for everybody else? Or can we put it up on the screen at least?
It's on the screen, please.
Ah, right.
Right.
Can we make
So
it
this was an
can we make it a little bigger, please? That's better, yes. Thank you. Is this what you were referring to? Right, thank you.
Right. And you were explaining the assumption that was made in relation to the pipeline, referring to this diagram. Can you explain what we're looking at? And
Okay, at the foot of the riser, there's concrete bags placed to stop the riser sinking further than the rest of the pipeline. Because the pipeline is concrete coated,
Could you just show us where that's depicted? Point.
so here we have some concrete bags at the foot of the riser. When you have a concrete coated line, and the riser is coated as well, there's concentrated weight on the riser. Right? So it sinks further than the rest of the pipeline. So that's where you will have getting your undulations. So what's a bit perplexing in this case, it's not just at the riser, because Christopher refers to 2 air pockets. So if it was just this one, now you would have 1 air pocket. So there must have been some more undulation in the pipeline. But this is what was meant to portray that the line was level and not undulation or sinking down into this corner. Right? And that
Right.
that's one of the explanations for the air pockets that came up that we found out was there.
So when you were, where did you get this document from?
This was given by at one of our meetings after the
Paria gave it.
Paria. Yeah, it's a
Right.
Paria document.
Right. But you assumed from that that the pipe
Was
at
level.
sub-sea level
Yeah,
was-
because
was level.
yeah, with no. The major thing was that the riser hadn't sunk down lower than the rest of the pipe.
Right. So that there'd been no movement, or you didn't believe there to be any movement
Yeah.
at the riser at number 6.
And
And
similar for number 5.
is that the
because-
same for the riser? I think the next diagram is the one at
Yeah.
number 5.
so yes, so there are 2 diagrams, one for Berth 5 and one for Berth 6. And just by way of explanation, Mr. Ali, you'll confirm that that's the same reasoning and rationale,
yeah,
which is
at
applicable
both.
to both. All right. Can we please have page 4252 of the bundles of submission? That is a permit to work.
Yeah. Just before you move on,
Yes.
does it give the distance of the pipe from the mean sea level to the floor? I mean, it probably does, but it's in such tiny writing, I can't possibly read it. I challenge most people to be able to read it, actually. I just want to know if it does. And if it does it give exactly the same distance for both 5 and 6?
I'm going to attempt to read it myself, please, Mr. Commissioner.
I'm figuring it's going to give you the depth. I just want to know if it's the same. Well, should we check that later on? We've got the diagrams now. We can check it later. You can move on to your next question.
I'm grateful. There is on the right of the document a number of measurements that I can see.
We've got the document. We can work it
So
out.
we
All
can perhaps look at it. All right. So can I have page 2871? Witness statement, supplemental witness statement. supplemental witness statement. Yeah. Paragraph 92. Right. So I'm taking you to paragraph 92 of your statement where you've said that your men were about to implement a plan, a simple plan for the rescue,
Correct.
right? But something happened, right? Let me take you to now page 9302 of the bundles of submissions. Bundles of submissions. No. Oh, sorry. It's page 4252. It's the permit to work 9302. But unlike the core bundle, this has a second page that was
Just a minute.
omitted from the core
The
bundle.
permit to work, you say?
Yes, it's a permit to work, right.
Right.
So
1074 in core bundle.
So the core bundle, Mr. Commissioner, has a page that has been omitted. So this is the first page of that permit to work. And Mr. Ali, this is the permit to work that would have been issued to LMCS for the purposes of the 25th of February, 2022.
Correct, yeah, 9320.
Right. I'd like to take you to the second page. So this is the first page. Yes? And now scroll. Keep scrolling. Right, stop right there. Right. So we have an annotation here. You see that? Are you seeing that? Are you
Yeah,
seeing?
sorry, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you be able to tell the commission what that annotation means?
That's where the permit was pulled and all work stopped. The men were instructed not to do anything on the badge. As you can see,
Can you
the
see a time?
there is
Right.
1522 on the 25th, second.
So all work stopped at 1522.
Yeah, that's what they took. They pulled the permit then and actually signed it off.
And by pulling the permit, they also came with instructions to the members of LMCS present at the barge?
That's correct. When they pulled it, even though it said 1522, it was just after I left that they told the men they wanted to do anything else. And they had the permit for nothing.
And anything else would have included carrying out
The diving, the rescue.
the rescue plan.
So that I understand, your position is this, is that indicates the time at which LMCS were effectively prevented from doing anything further under the original work.
We are on a short break because, of course, TTT always has to come with their stupidness as it pertains to, adverts for the NLCB and so on. But we can have a quick chat in the meantime as we wait. I decided not to end the stream because I'm always doing that. I will just wait until the adverts have been completed. And in the interim, I suppose we can have a look at some comments that people have been made. But the Commission of Enquiry is still ongoing. So thank you for tuning in. It will be put back up on the live as soon as it starts back. So I've decided to do things a little bit differently because I found that I've been stopping and starting too often. So let's look at a few comments that people have made. Some people say that they like how the commissioner is dealing with this, as he's a no nonsense man. Um, let's see. People have been waiting for Prakash Ramada to come on the thing. They felt, however, that, and let me just put this comment up. Colleen Lender says Mr. Peterson asked hours of foolishness and was not stopped. But as soon as Prakash started asking all the right questions, Mr. Lynch stops him. I don't see where this is going already. And Lynch toting from the last time Prakash put him in his place. I don't know if people agree with that, but to be fair, I think that the chairman has been being very fair to ensure that people remain, you know, within fair reason with the line of questioning. This commission of inquiry is not really, as Prakash said, to ascertain guilt per se, but rather to get at the facts. Of course, we, the members of the public, have the rights to ask certain questions, to come up with our own opinions and whatnot. But the commission itself is not designed to actually lay blame at anyone's feet, but it's rather to get at the facts. So in that case, I would agree with the chair that Prakash needs to be curtailed in terms of how he is putting forward his suggestions, right? um, because you know it is fair to object at that particular point. Um, okay, somebody says he assumed based on a drawing that the pipe was horizontal. Seriously, a pipeline on the sea floor. Um, Great. So as we would have just seen, he was referring to a map which we then saw, but it was not shown by Paria's lawyers. But in actual fact, the map, the design of the thing that was provided to LMCS by Paria would have lent Kazim Ali Sr. to make certain assumptions based on his understanding of what he thought was an accurate reflection of the pipeline. Okay, so let's see. Right. Okay, so folks, we're just waiting here for this. Richard Mulchan says he thinks that Mr. Ali sounds very professional and honest. I'm keen to hear how people feel, if anything has changed, if their position has changed since Kazim Ali Sr. has been cross-examined. Do you think that, in actual fact, we've learned that perhaps LMCS didn't do all that they could to ensure that things were above board? This is I'm keen to hear what people think. People said that they felt as though the lawyers representing Paria were not being very compassionate in the way that they were asking questions. Francis Bruzel says Kazim looks tired, composed but tired. The inquiry should be on Paria's tardiness in not beginning a prompt rescue mission instead of color and strength of nuts. Although, there are certain reasons why, these things might be asked. Hold on, I'm just having a look here to make sure that I'm on time with the commission. Okay. 1 second. Great. I'm seeing some comments coming through. I'm just reading. Someone says assumptions have to be tested. If the risk assessment was done sufficiently, that would have been done. All right. I think we might be preparing to head back. Hold on.
Was there a method for measuring that?
Sorry?
Was there a method for measuring the quality of the air?
There is.
Right. And was that
There-
being monitored?
There were 2 meters monitoring the air constantly.
Thank you.
One belonging to Paria and one belonging to LMCS. And that was full time. It wasn't stop and go continuously. And like I said before, the hydrocarbon from heavy fuel is 5 times heavier than air. It would come out the pipeline and sink to the bottom of the chamber. On top of that, the flash point was so high that was very little hydrocarbon that would come out. So the chamber was safe at all times once we have it vented. If it had ever gone to the stage where it became dangerous, we'd pull the men out, vent it out properly again before we send them in. If we still couldn't get it, then we'd go in with the air, keep the mask on, close the pipeline, and then come out. So the danger of hydrocarbon, well, there was no welding done. I know there was a permit, but a hot work permit, but the work permit was meant to be over a 7-day period. Within that 7 days, we would have been welding again. So that's why the permit would have been there. It's interesting to note that work permit. Down, can we have it again on the screen?
Yes, we can.
9320. Yeah. Just scroll along a bit, please, whoever. Again. All right, good. In column, in section 4, if you look, there's gloves on one side and you go across, gas monitoring equipment required. Right onto the bottom of that. You see, there's no connotation there for gas monitoring. So it's obviously everybody knew there was no welding going to take place. No welding. That's why you would have the gas monitor.
Well, it's blank. It hasn't been ticked, has it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, you know, if they envisaged welding, they would have definitely ticked it out.
I believe this is all from LMCS, please.
I have no question, Mr. Chairman.
Could I say one more thing, sir?
Well, depends what it is.
Okay, when we were showing the film, the video of the pipeline,
Yes.
there's reference to a boroscope.
Yes.
And the boroscope showed, the film of the boroscope showed that the bottle was right there at the elbow,
Right.
which had been about 10 feet
Right.
from the riser. Right? The other film that was showed here the last station showed a crawler film, and that same bottle was now shown to be 200 feet into the bottom of the pipeline.
Do we know that it's the same one?
You didn't show the boroscope one, but the crawler one showed it, but the boroscope, which was in the package,
Right. Well, it's your belief it's the same one. What's the point you want to make?
it's the same bottle.
Right. Same bottle.
Yeah, because you can see the marking on the bottle. But when people were invited or asked if they were going to the pipeline, they were shown a drawing showing you the bottle at 150 feet. In fact, one of the experts said the reason he wasn't going to the dive, apart from being told by Paria that it was a recovery, was because there was a blockage 150 feet into the pipe. This was wrong information. This is what led people to say, no, we can't do it.
Right. Because they thought that the pipe was blocked by tank. Yeah.
But not in that, they're showing that the pipe is there. And then they're using that now to say there was no air
Well,
pocket.
I'm bound to say
So it seemed that-
I'm unpersuaded by that particular observation by a number of people at the moment, because it seems to me if Mr. Boudrin managed to get past it to get out,
Exactly.
I can't see how it was a problem for anyone to get past it to go in. But that's another
So-
matter, all right? We'll deal with that.
All right, so if I could just quickly finish here.
You're not the advocate, Mr. Ali. I have a whole phalanx of advocates here, all right? But I understand
I
what
thought
you're
we were going to
saying.
get to the facts of this thing.
Well, we're doing our best, I can assure you.
Okay.
All right, look, we're going to rise for 5 minutes, and then we're going to recall another witness. Thank you very much indeed for coming. It's much appreciated. You are now free to stay or go as you please. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll rise for 5 minutes, please.
Yeah, sorry, I was saying that I wanted to hear what Mr. Kazim Ali had to say. They've gone on a 5-minute break, but of course, I guess they ran out of time and they didn't really have the time to listen to what additional he had to say about that. But the commissioner did agree, of course, that he was not persuaded by the folks who have put in there with the statements that there was some kind of blockage because, of course, Christopher Boudram came out of the same pipeline, right? And so he, in fairness, assuaded to Mr. Kazim Ali Sr.'s observation that the position put forth by many people within Paria and so on was in some senses not persuasive at all because Christopher Boudram came out of the pipeline. All right. So yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ali. I know that was probably hard, says Karen Sampath. Yes. So again, folks, we have 5 minutes to wait. I'm not going to end the stream because I feel as though I've been ending the stream far too often. And it makes no sense just stopping and starting all the time. All right. So I am just going to kind of have a pause at this point in time. And if you like, you can stick around or come back in 4 minutes, right? But I'm just going to put something up on the screen that indicates that we are on a short. Okay. So I'm going to mute myself for now. And you can stick around. We're going to keep it streaming, but just note that we are on a break. Okay. And I believe that Ahmed Ali will be up next to be cross-examined by the Commission of Enquiry. Okay. So stick around. You can keep the live open while you do other things. And of course, it will be put back up on the screen as soon as it returns. But yes, I'm not going to be ending the live at this point because it makes no sense. So as soon as it returns, it will be put back up. So, okay, for now, people, I'm going to mute myself. Peace. Hold on. I'm unmuting myself because I just read an interesting statement from Claudia Sharma. She said what Mr. Ali just said though was extremely important as the expert divers decided not to go in because of which image was shown to them regarding the location of the blockage. I think this comment is very, very important. And I think definitely the Commission of Enquiry should be minded to take on board. And maybe they overlooked that insinuation because, in fairness, Mr. Ali is not very assertive in the way that he speaks, right? And was almost coming across mumbling because he wasn't speaking into the microphone. Um, Whereas if he was a little bit more assertive and very clear in the way that he was speaking, I think the point that he was making at the very end, which Claudia is alluding to, is a very important one. And I actually, it did kind of slip me as well. But by you positioning it in this way, having clearly understood the point he was making, I think also too that this is a very important point. And perhaps there is a cause. Hold on, I think the commission is restarting. So let me
On 10th November 2022, Mr. Dilpole provided a signed witness statement to the Commission. This is a WB 2932, following an interview with counsel to the Commission. He was represented by counsel during the interview. He said that the facts stated in his witness statement are true and correct. Mr. Dilpole has about 13 years experience in health and safety and has qualifications including OSHA General Industry Standard Certification, OSHA Construction Industry Standards Certification, International Association of Safety Professionals Confined Space Entry Certification, Shadrach Risk and Assessment and Accident and Investigation Certification, and NIBOSH HSC Certificate Level 4. As LMCS's FHSO, Mr. Dilpole conducted safety meetings, explained job safety analyses, JSAs, and risk assessments, as well as identifying hazards and making recommendations. He says he was not involved in the preparation of JSAs or risk assessments for the Paria project. LMCS's HSE manager, Ahmed Ali, prepared those documents. Mr. Dilpole says he was training on Paria's Permit to Work system, PTW, but was not yet authorized to sign a PTW on behalf of LMCS. He says he attended training sessions with Paria after he started working with LMCS. Mr. Dilpole was involved in LMCS's line clearing, and he was there when the line was pumped at Berth 5, and he conducted some of the toolbox meetings for the line clearing. On 15th February 2022, he conducted a toolbox meeting with Ahmed Ali. He also conducted toolbox talks for the installation of the hyperbaric chamber and the plug, and was present for the installation of the plug, but cannot recall exactly how it was done. On Friday, 25th February 2022, Mr. Dilpole was LMCS's safety officer at Berth 6, and at around 9 a.m., he had a toolbox meeting to discuss the job hazards. He said Paria's Andrew Dobson was present, and the main hazards discussed were compressor failure and chamber flooding. He says he discussed general hazards. He asked Mr. Dobson if he wished to address anything, but Mr. Dobson said no. Mr. Dilpole said that anyone who was present on 25th February 2022 during the toolbox talks would have signed the toolbox forms. Mr. Dilpole said that on 25th February 2022, he called upon Kazim Ali Jr., who was a job supervisor, to discuss the job method and hazards. Kazim Ali Jr. then talked about compressor failure and chamber flooding, but what he said was not documented at the toolbox meeting. Mr. Dilpole explains that Kazim Ali Jr. was his supervisor that day and was very busy, and told Mr. Dilpole to leave it, and when he, meaning Mr. Ali Jr., got a chance, he would document what he had spoken about at the meeting, but of course he never got a chance to. Kazim Ali Jr. also spoke about the job to be done, but Mr. Dilpole cannot recall what he said about the job in particular. Mr. Dilpole recalls that Mr. Terence Rampersad Singh of Paria was not present at the toolbox meeting. Mr. Dilpole also said that he did not observe any breaches of safety protocol, but he did review the permit to work, and his job was to ensure that what was on the PTW was done and nothing contrary to that. He said that the PTW was a package comprising a method statement, a risk assessment, and a JHA. Mr. Dilpole says that when the accident occurred, he, meaning Mr. Dilpole, was on barge 6 making observations. He said Paria's representative, Mr. Dobson, had already gone ashore to collect his lunch, but Mr. Dobson was on site for the entire day before the accident occurred. He said that Mr. Dobson inspected all the documents, including the PTW with the method statement, and also checked the oxygen level and did a gas-free test in the habitat. Mr. Dilpole describes the knocking he heard coming from the direction of the habitat. This was around 4:25 p.m., and he and the others began pounding the pipe, and he heard a faint voice and knocking. He says that Paria said that no divers should enter the habitat, and he describes the arrival of the Coast Guard, who he said were taking photographs of themselves. He also describes Christopher Boudram's rescue, and that when he was being transferred to the Adventurer X, he said that the others were alive in the air pocket. Mr. Dilpole said that he tried to discuss rescue plans with Paria's personnel, but they showed no interest, nor did they include him in their discussions. He remained on site all day Saturday and left at 8 p.m. Before leaving, he said that LMCS was just there and no one from Paria was saying anything and nothing was being done. Thank you, Chairman.
There was just one thing I needed to ask you, if you would help me at this stage, please. A permit to work could be for longer than 1 day. Is that right?
Well, Paria's permit to work system works
Can
7
you speak
days.
a little louder and into that microphone, please?
Paria permit to work system is 7 days.
Several days.
7 days.
7.
What happens after the day's job? It's suspended, and the following day it would be renewed.
After each day or?
Each working day.
Right. So the permit would have a life of 7 days.
Right, correct.
But is limited in the sense that at the end of each day it's suspended and then restarted the following day. And that would go on for 7 days.
Right.
And then there would be a new work permit, would there, for any subsequent work?
With the same information, unless there are changes to the job.
Right. So if a job, for example, was estimated to take 7 days, but lasted, in fact, 9 days, would there have to be a whole new permit for the extra 2 days?
Yes.
And would the new permit simply reflect what was on the old permit?
Yes, correct.
Right. Next, a toolbox meeting. Is that just to do with safety, or does it cover other things as well?
Toolbox cover the safety of the job and also the steps of the job.
Right. The steps of what's supposed to happen in the order in which it's supposed to happen.
Correct.
So you'd be present at such a meeting.
Yes.
And your contribution would be to deal with health and safety.
Yes.
And was it at any time your responsibility to identify health and safety issues?
Not on that given day.
I beg pardon?
Not on that given day.
Not on that given day. You were simply covering the ones that have been already identified. Is that right? Thank you very much. All right. So I will ask anybody else. Mr. Peterson?
Mr. Mutu will take this witness, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Dill. My name is Jason Mutu, and I have a few questions to ask you. I act on behalf of Paria. Now, in your statement to the commission, you submitted that on the 10th of November 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. But you also submitted a statement to OSHA on the 17th of March 2022. Recall that?
I can't remember the exact date, but I did.
Okay, we'll get it. But do you recall submitting a statement to OSHA?
Yes.
Okay, and do you recall that statement was quite some time before you submitted your statement to this commission?
Yeah.
Yes?
Mr. Mutu, will you get a little closer to your microphone?
I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Just
Okay, and you were, as I read your statement, you were involved in 2 toolbox meetings. Is that correct? At least 2 on this job. The 15th of February, 2022, and the 25th of February, 2022.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right. And as the chairman asked you, your responsibility there was really to deal with the safety aspects of the job.
Correct.
Correct? Now, on the 25th in particular, Mr. Kazem Ali was there at that toolbox meeting. Junior, sorry, yes. Thank you for the correction. He was there on that day, yes? Yeah. And your discussion in your statement about the toolbox meeting is that there's a toolbox form to be filled out.
Yes.
Yes? And the important aspects that are discussed at that meeting are included on the form. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
And you would consider that to be a very critical aspect of what's included on the form.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yes. But your evidence to the commission is that although you could recall what you spoke about in connection with safety on the 25th of February, you actually have no recollection what Kazim Ali Jr. spoke about in relation to the job to be done. Perhaps I can help you. Might the witness be shown paragraph 24 of his witness statement of the 10th of November 2022? That is at page 2936 of the witness statement bundle. Yes, you can see it on screen. Do you see that?
What exactly?
Paragraph 24, it's at the top of the screen.
Right.
If your evidence in the inquiry is you can't remember or recall what Kazim Ali Jr. said about the job on that day. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I couldn't recall all the specifics which he spoke about.
Right, but you didn't identify any in your witness statement, did you?
No, I didn't.
And in fact, in your earlier statement to OSHA, that is to be found at page 694 of the bundle of submissions. I want to suggest to you, first of all, yes, it's up on the screen. It's a 2-page document. I want to suggest to you that in this statement, you also made no mention about the method of the job to be performed. You made no mention of it there in that statement at all, correct?
Correct.
Good. And this was a mere 3 weeks after the incident had occurred. Yes?
Right.
Now you're aware of Mr. Andrew Dobson. You know that name?
Yeah.
And he was a HSC technician on site. You agree with me?
Agreed.
And he was there on the 25th of February. And he was a Kenson official. Sorry, yes, at the toolbox meeting. Yes, you accept that? And I need you to say yes or no.
Yeah.
Yes. And he was a Kenson official, or you knew him to be a Kenson official?
Yes.
Yes. And you also knew Kenson to be representing the interests of Paria.
Correct.
Right. Now, I'd like to ask your witness to be shown a document at page 6592 of what I understand to be the bundle of submission, electronic bundle of submissions received by the Commission.
Yes, thank you.
I realize when everyone votes, you cannot get yours.
Yeah, quite. Somebody tell me where that is in our core bundles, please. Volume 2. Thank you. No. It's not in the core bundle at all. You sure what that is? (10.22). Thank you. Proceed, please.
Thank you. I'd like you to have a look at this document in front of you. It runs into 2 pages. And on the face of it, it's prepared by Mr. Andrew Dobson. It's dated the 25th of February, 2022. It's the same day. You agree with me?
Okay.
And it's a daily activity report. It's quite a detailed document. Would you agree with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes? And would you also agree with me that nowhere in that document is the removal of any migration barrier discussed? You accept that?
No.
You don't accept it? Have a look at it. And tell me where in that document the removal of the migration barrier is discussed.
It isn't there.
It isn't there. So let me get the evidence correct. It's not there. It's not in your statement given to OSHA. Yes? You agree? It's not in your statement given to OSHA 3 weeks after the event. It's not in your statement to the commission. I want to suggest to you that, in fact, the removal of the migration barrier was not discussed on the 25th of February.
No, it was discussed.
It was discussed?
Yeah.
Didn't you just tell us a few moments ago, when we looked at paragraph 24 of your witness statement, that you agreed with me? You couldn't remember anything Kazim Ali Jr. spoke about the job?
It wasn't mentioned.
Do you recall that?
Yes, I recall.
Yes. Do you think that the removal of the migration barrier was an important matter?
Yeah, it was important.
By the time you came to prepare the statement, don't you consider it was perhaps one of the most important matters?
To answer that question, the guys that were in the pipe.
No, I'm not asking you about that. Don't you consider by the time you came to prepare the statement, it was one of the most important matters, if not the most important matter?
Well, it was important, yeah.
Yes, and it was, but nonetheless, are you asking the commission to believe that despite it was one of the most important matters, you never mentioned it to OSHA, you never mentioned it to the commission, and in fact, the first time you're mentioning it is today?
Well, I was going to quote for you from the method statement.
We'll get to the method statement.
I can't hear. You have to speak directly into that microphone,
I
please.
say we'll get to that when it comes to the method statement.
We'll get to it.
Right.
I'm not asking about the method statement. I'm asking about what you told the commission and what you told OSHA.
At that point in time, I couldn't have remember everything.
Also, your memory is better now, several months after the fact?
If you were part of that, you would have understand what I had dealt with.
Yes, I understand that, but you submitted this statement, so your memory got better between the 10th of November and the 5th of December. Is that it?
No, that's not it.
Well, I'm suggesting to you that, in fact, on the toolbox meeting document that you formed, that you asked us to look, that you signed. You recall signing a toolbox meeting form?
Yes.
Let's look at page 1070 of the core bundle. You have that in front of you?
Yeah.
No mention of the removal of the migration barrier. Do you accept that?
Yeah, because I stated in my statement that Kazim Ali had spoken about that, so he would have written in that.
Kazim Ali spoke, you're saying in your statement, you say Kazim Ali spoke about the removal of the migration barrier. Didn't you just tell us in your statement that you couldn't remember what he said at all? At paragraph 24?
At the given moment when I had given the statement.
So yes, 2 weeks ago you couldn't remember, but now you remember. Didn't we just cover that ground, Mr. Dilpole?
Well, if you say so.
Would you like to change your evidence today for the first time?
Well, it was spoken about.
Okay. But it's not on the form. It's not on the toolbox form. You accept that?
Yes, I accept that because the form is incomplete.
And it's also, but you would accept that this toolbox form was a document that was prepared on the day.
Yes.
And Mr. Dobson's statement that we just took you to was a document prepared on the day.
Okay.
You accept that?
Right.
And on the day, would you also accept that nobody knew about Delta P at the time? Would you accept that?
Yeah.
To the best of your knowledge, nobody knew about it. In fact, nobody knew what had caused the problem. Isn't that right?
Correct.
So it's very unusual if the removal of the migration barrier was spoken about, that it was omitted from all of the documents produced on that day. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well,
would you agree with that?
I agree.
It's unusual. In fact, you would agree with me that what one would have expected is that if it was discussed, it would have been on the documents. Would you not agree with that? If it was discussed, it would have been usual. Listen to my question. It would have been usual to expect it to be on the documents.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, you also spoke about your knowledge of the permit to work system. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
You were trained in it. Yes?
Yeah.
Now, in your statement, I see you talk about the permit to work, and then you talk about permit to work documents. You recall that?
Right.
So is it that you look at them as two different things? The permit to work is one document, and then you have a group of other documents.
No, well, the permit to work is more or less a package.
Okay, so when you use the phrase in your statement, permit to work documents, what you mean is the permit and the supporting documents.
Correct.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, Paria produced a method statement, an amended method statement for this job. You familiar with that? Sorry, forgive me, LMCS. It's a long day.
Yeah.
You familiar with that?
Yeah.
No? But as the health and safety officer.
I said yes.
Oh, yes, right. Now, if the witness can be shown 1048 of core bundle 2. Right, just on the first page there. This is a method statement. You see it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the LMCS logo at the top of the page. Yeah, you accept that's an LMCS document.
Yeah.
You see immediately under the main heading, italicized words in bold. All steps below shall only be carried out in full compliance with Paria's permit to work system. You see that?
Yeah, I see that.
And were you listening to the evidence earlier today when Mr. Ali was?
I hope he wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
Well, I was going to ask.
Well, then
I
ask.
was isolated.
Now it's a bit late.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to find another question for you then.
Have I somehow stolen your thunder, Mr. Mutu?
Mr. Peterson was stealing it anyway.
All right.
So, are you aware, and I'll use my words, are you aware that from the perspective of LMCS's upper management, they consider the actual permit to work to be the most important document?
The permit to work
No,
works.
I'm asking you, are you aware of that? If you're not, that's fine.
No.
Are you aware of it?
No.
Okay, good. Will you accept from me that the permit to work can set out the actual permit? Forget the bundle. The permit to work can actually set out what is to be done and what is not to be done. Well, what is to be done on a particular day.
I can explain.
You'll get a chance to explain in a while, but let's go through my questions first. Would you accept that the permit to work can set out what is to be done on a particular day?
It can outline some of the
Okay.
specifics.
Do you recall the permit to work of that day, of the 25th of February? You told us you saw it.
Yeah, I saw it, but I can't recall.
All right, that is at page 1074 of the same bundle. Can you look a little bit further down the page? Right. Can I ask you, the operator, to stop right there? Migration barrier to be used. You see this under the heading requirements for equipment isolation and clearance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you would agree with me. You would understand what that means is the migration barrier is to be used on that day.
As I mentioned.
No, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Answer my question.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying there.
Yes, good. And I want to suggest to you that in your statement, when you say the most important document in the permit to work package is a method statement, that's what you say. I want to suggest to you two things. One, that that's untrue. Do you accept that? That the actual document that's the most important is the permit itself.
Well, okay.
Not okay. Do you accept it?
No, I don't.
Two things first, please.
Yes.
Can you move that microphone slightly to your left? A bit more. No more than that. You see, when you're looking at me, it's fine, right, in where it is, but you're not looking at me. You're looking at, at Mr. Mutu, who's asking you questions. So that's better there. Thank you.
Yes. You don't accept that the permit to work.
No.
Would you like to reconsider that answer after having just looked at the method statement? Remember the words I showed you at the top of the method statement?
Yeah.
Would you like to reconsider your answer in light of that? Would you like to see the method statement again?
I saw it.
It's not too late.
Well, I want to explain why.
We'll get to that.
The method.
Would you like to reconsider your answer?
Well, he keeps saying he wants to explain. Let him explain, Mr. Mutu.
I'll give
If
way,
he
Mr.
can, let
Chairman,
him explain.
if I'm directed.
Please, explain what you understand the position to be.
The method statement is created. From the method statement, the GHA and the risk assessment is created. So that is the steps of the job.
Maybe I'm not being fair. But the permit to work is a separate document.
Yes, it is.
Permit to work is a separate document, isn't it?
Right, it is.
And it's actually the last document, isn't it?
It is.
So it is the final say. In fact, wait, let me withdraw that question. The other documents are prepared by LMCS, isn't that right?
Correct.
So, but the permit to work is signed off by Paria.
Correct.
And the permit to work is Paria's final say as to what is to happen on the day in question.
But if you had noticed that the space there.
We'll get to that. I'm asking you whether the permit to work is Paria's final say as to what is to happen on the day.
Yes.
Good. I want to take you to just one small area again.
Did you say yes to that?
Yeah.
I just want to take you to one small area. This is just to help me clarify something. In your witness statement of the 10th of November, you talk at paragraph 52. Can the witness be shown paragraph 52? Please. Right. And to be fair to him, if paragraph 49 can fit on the same page, it'll be helpful to him. Right. So what we're seeing, I want to pick up the narrative at paragraph 49. You're saying at around 14:45 hours, right? I was on the barge when Andrew Farrar was asking Dexter Guerra if the compressor was still operating. And then you give us a narrative, and at paragraph 52, you say, at this time, I had believed the men were in the water. What time was that?
It would have been shortly after.
All right. And then well, you give us a time frame a little lower down. You say at paragraph 53, sometime around 16:25 hours, or it could be later, Dexter and I heard a knocking and a voice coming from the direction of the habitat. So that's about 4:30 p.m., right? Correct?
Correct.
An immediate paragraph before you say, at this time, I had believed the men were in the water. Is that closer to 4:30? Because you've told us a lot had happened between 14:45. So when you say at this time in paragraph 52, that would be closer to 4:30, wouldn't it? Have a look at the statement. I'm just trying to follow what you meant.
It would have been shortly after Andrew had entered the chamber and realized the guys weren't there.
Okay, so that was at so you're saying closer to 3 o'clock?
So it could be after 3.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that it wasn't until about 16:25 that you actually thought that the man might be in the pipe?
Me?
Yes, you.
Yeah, me, yeah.
Right. But you were the health and safety officer there on that day.
Yeah.
Right. And would you agree with me that if somebody had thought that the men were in the pipe prior to 4:30 as LMCS's health and safety officer, somebody from LMCS would have told you that prior to 4:30?
No, well,
I'm
as
asking
stated
you
there,
whether it would be reasonable that prior to that time, if anybody thought that they were in the pipe.
Well, I think you can ask him, was he told? It's not a question of
Yeah.
whether he thinks it's reasonable or not, as to whether he was or not. I think it's what you can ask him, it seems to me, and the question is simply this. Were you ever told by anybody at LMCS that the men might be in the pipe?
yeah, well, Andrew Farah, Dexter Guerra, and Mr. Kazim Sr., they
Right.
had suggested that they were in the pipe. I had still believed
Right,
that they
so-
were in the water.
You thought they were still in
Yeah.
the water, but they had suggested to you that they might be in the pipe.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, you believed them, they were still in the water.
Yeah.
When did they tell you that?
I can't recall.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you. All right, Mr.
Thank you. I have no further questions for this one.
Thank you. And before I pass you, can I just ask you a couple of questions, please? If you don't know the answer, please just say, I don't know. Don't try and guess and don't try and help anybody, all right? Just answer the question. In the document, which is our 1070, which is the toolbox meeting, can that be put back up, please? You were asked about this document,
Right.
correct? And what you told us is that you can now recall that there was discussion about the removal of the barrier. You agree it's nowhere on this document at all. You answered my questions right at the outset before I asked Mr. Mutu to ask you any questions, that you told us what you understand a toolbox meeting to be, which is a number of different steps and different things that were being said before the work commences on that day. Your part in that was safety.
Correct.
Yes? But that's not the only things that are being done in a toolbox meeting, is it? As you told us earlier. Is that right?
Right.
So other people have other responsibilities at that toolbox meeting.
Correct.
Did they include things like the steps to be done?
Yes, they did.
Right. So irrespective of what the steps were, all right, and I'm going to put that to one side for the moment, irrespective of that, in this document, is there anything at all which sets out what the steps are?
No.
Of any kind?
No.
Is the only thing that is raised in this document health and safety?
Yeah.
Who put those health and safety things on this document?
It would have been me, because that's what I
Is that
spoke
your
about.
handwriting?
Yeah.
Right. So at the top where it says topics discussed, you've taken up 1 1/3 of the 2 lines that are made available. And you put in various things that we can see, which are all to do with health and safety. Choppy waters, weather conditions, slippages, awareness, COVID-19 protocols, all of those sorts of things, communications, all right? All health and safety matters, all your responsibility. It is somebody else's responsibility, is it not, to add to that whatever else they discussed. They didn't,
Yes.
did they?
No,
Not on
they
this
didn't.
document.
No.
Can we go to the next page, please? Page 1071. This is also a toolbox meeting, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Right. This is apparently 15 minutes later, isn't it? You see yours, the previous one, is at 9:15. This one is at 9:30. It's also on the 25th of February, all right? The speaker in the previous one's said to be Mr. Dill Paul, and the speaker in this one is said to be Mr. Dill Paul. That's you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Here, on this occasion, the description is job project to remove and install solid blank. Do you see that? On the previous one, there was nothing there at all, was there? If necessary, we can flip back to it. See, nothing where it says job or project. Nothing at all. Left blank. Who should have put something in there?
That was my responsibility.
I'm sorry?
That was my responsibility.
Your responsibility. Yeah. You didn't put anything in that.
Yeah.
When you come to the next page, well, scroll up again, please. You did, didn't you? Put in to remove and install solid blank. Is that what you thought was going to be done on that day? Is that what you thought was going to be done on that day?
This would have been on Berth 5.
Yes. Well, just a second. Is that what you thought was going to be done on that day?
Yeah.
Right. Are the things that are mentioned there, COVID-19 protocols, strain, pinch points, caught between, communications, weather conditions, choppy waters, manual handling? So broadly speaking, the same things as on the previous document, correct? Different people attending on this one, correct?
Correct.
Did you conduct these toolbox meetings at each separate location, Berth 5 and Berth 6?
That meeting would have been on the boat going out.
So you're having this toolbox meeting on the boat as you're bobbing along going to Berth 6 and Berth 5, are you?
Yeah, Berth 5.
So were all of the people that have signed this both documents on that boat?
Yeah.
An awful lot of people on that boat. How big is the boat?
So a pirogue.
Sorry?
It's a pirogue.
A what?
A pirogue.
I have no idea what that is. No doubt somebody will tell me later. But anyway, they were all on the boat. So you conduct a toolbox meeting on the boat for Berth 5 and a separate one for Berth 6. And that's what these two documents relate to, is it?
Yeah.
Right. And nowhere on these documents does it say anything about what was actually going to be done or the steps to be done beyond identifying to remove and install a solid blank at Berth 5. Is that right?
Right.
If somebody were to be setting out the steps to be carried out of the work that needed to be done at Berth 6 and Berth 5, whose responsibility was it to put that on there?
Supervisor.
The supervisor, not yours.
No.
So first things to be discussed were safety. Yes, that's why you filled it in. And then the supervisor, whoever that was, for each of those particular jobs, didn't fill in anything, did he?
No.
Who had the form?
When the form would have been with their packages.
Sorry?
Well, Berth 5 would have had a package. And
No,
Berth
you're
6
on the
would
boat.
also have
You just told us you're on the boat, bobbing up and down, going to the berth. You got your form. You're filling it in. Presumably, you told us it's contemporaneously done, isn't it?
Right.
Right. So it's contemporaneously done. Who's got the form?
Well, they would have their package, so I would have filled that out, and they would have gone with that
Who's
package.
got this
at
form,
5.
Mr. Dilpaul? Who has this form?
Berth 5.
No. Who physically has it in their hands? Who's writing on it?
My writing.
Right.
Right.
So you've got the form.
Correct.
Having completed it, you then pass it to each of the people who are on the boat to sign it. Is that right?
Right.
While they're on the boat?
Yeah.
Is that right? So is this the last, contrary to what Mr. Mutu was suggesting, is this actually the last point in time, the last document where Paria or its representatives can say that's not what we intended should happen?
I wouldn't say so, because in my possession, if anything else were to be done or not to be done, I carries a radio belonging to Paria, so that if there's anything that they have second thoughts on, they would inform me.
Now, you see, Mr. Mutu was saying that the final document is the permit to work.
Right.
All right, and that was the final point of say that Paria had as to what the work should be. I hope I'm wrong. And you said yes to that. That was the last document, the last opportunity that Paria had to say what the scope of work was, what was to be done, and so on. Now, is that right, or is it the toolbox document that is actually signed by representatives, if not actual Paria employees, but representatives of Paria from Kenson?
It was a simple yes and no answer to me. I wasn't able to.
Can't hear you.
I say it was a simple yes and no answer to me. I wasn't able to explain myself.
Right. And?
The works hand in hand with the method statement. We follow the steps of the job. The permit would have specifics of the job. May not have everything that is to be done.
Right. Well, let's have a look, please. Can you just put up the permit, please, which is at our page 1074. You see the permit there?
Right.
Right. At the top of the permit, it says what works to be done, specific tasks. Do you see? The job, it says various maintenance work on 5636 riser. Yes? And then it says to remove and install 50-inch flange, remove and install 30-inch riser pipe, remove 30-inch solid blank, conduct pressure test of flange weld, remove chamber, and blank top of new riser. See that? It's been pointed out to you that nothing's been said there about the barriers being removed. That's correct, isn't it?
Correct.
Indeed, paragraph 1, it says mitigation barrier to be used. Yes? Not to be removed.
That's because, as I mentioned, the permit is a 7-day process.
Right.
And these information would always be there because the permit is being suspended and renewed.
Well, attached to that document is the document you were referred to, the method statement, which is at 1048. Now, you're the health and safety officer. When you see this statement, can you scroll up a little, please? You see it's got what appear to be a numbered system.
Yeah.
What do you understand the numbered system to represent?
There's a sequence, everything.
A sequence of events. If someone were to depart from that sequence of events, would something have to happen?
The only time that would happen is if it had a discussion with the contractor and the client.
Right. So LMCS would have to talk to Paria, to put it in a nutshell.
Paria have to approve on everything that is to be done.
Otherwise, you as the health and safety officer of LMCS, did you understand the numbering system to be the steps and the order in which those steps would be carried out?
Yeah.
You don't think you might be wrong about that?
No.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I have 1 or 2 questions just arising.
Certainly, I was going to say, Mr. Mutu, if you want to ask any questions arising from that now, please do.
Sure, thank you. The chairman just took you to the toolbox meeting form. On that form, apart from Mr. Dobbs.
This is 1070.
Yes, yes it is.
Yes.
I think what you were being asked is whether anyone from Paria, after the permit to work had been signed, but whether in fact this toolbox meeting document was the last opportunity.
That's what I was asking, yes.
Yes. The person who was there representing Paria's interests was Mr. Dobson, right? We covered that.
Correct.
And Mr. Dobson was the HSE, he was simply a HSE technician. Is that right?
Yeah.
Was there anyone else at that meeting representing Paria or Paria's interests?
None that I can recall.
Well, I am. Yeah. Right. All right. Just take your time. Was there anyone else there representing Paria's interests?
Dobson.
Yeah, apart from him, anyone else?
No.
And on the next page, 1071.
Sorry, before you move on from that, do you know a Mr. Marajad Singh?
Yeah, I know him.
Who does he work for?
Kenson.
Who does Kenson work for?
Paria.
Was he there?
No, he wasn't there.
He
On
wasn't
board
there.
6.
Would you have a look at the document? Is that a signature on the bottom, or is that just something?
Yeah, these documents was taken away when the incident occurred.
So you're saying even though his name is on there, he wasn't there?
He wasn't there.
Mr. Mutu?
I'm going to have to take instructions on that. That it's not been mentioned in any
Well,
statement.
to me either.
Yeah.
So we're at one with that.
Right. It's certainly very curious evidence to me, but I'll take instructions on it. On the next page, 1071. Well, I don't think we need to go to that. The point I'm after is this. Yeah.
Can we please? Because you've raised it, and I do want to see. Scroll up, please. Keep going. Keep going. Stop there. Thank you. Do you see on that document, Mr. Marajad Singh is also shown as being present?
Yeah.
So this is the one. We're all on the boat at this stage. I don't suppose the boat's gone back again, unloaded some people, and put some new ones on, has it?
No, no.
No. So you're popping up and down on the waves. Had Mr. Marajad Singh joined the boat on this occasion?
He would have been there on Berth 5 meeting.
So was he already on Berth 5, or was he on the boat?
He came onto the boat and while we were discussing the toolbox.
Well, I need to be clear, I'm afraid, because you've lost me now. I thought that when Mr. Mutu was asking you questions a moment ago, asking you about who was present representing Paria, you told him that there was a representative from Kenson. Go to the previous document, please. There was a representative from Kenson. That was a Mr. Dobson. Yes? We can see Mr. Dobson's name and his signature appears at 39 on that document.
Correct.
Yes? Below him is Mr. Houston Marajad Singh.
Yeah, but he wasn't on that. He wasn't a part of that toolbox.
Well, if you're all on the boat together, huddled up as you go along, I mean, unless it's some huge ship, as I understand, it's a small launch taking you from one berth to the other.
The meeting on Berth 6 was held on the barge.
Berth 6 was held on the barge.
Yeah.
And berth 5 was held
on the boat, yeah.
Sorry?
On the boat.
What, traveling from 6 to 5?
Yeah.
Right. So the first one that we're looking at there, that one, that's at 9:15.
Yeah.
Right. So that wasn't held on the boat, bobbing up and down on the sea, was it? No, right. So that's what I thought you'd said to us earlier, or to me at any rate. So you were all on the boat, you went to berth 5, and it's at berth 5 that you have the toolbox meeting.
Right.
Which did not include Mr. Marajad Singh.
At Berth 5, yes, but not at Berth 6.
Forgive me, yes. So you went to berth 6 first.
Yes.
Had the meeting there.
Yeah.
You left there, went to berth 5, and then you had the meeting, another meeting.
Yeah.
All right. So this meeting, is this the start time or the end time? 9:15.
What happened? The start.
Sorry?
The start.
Start time. Right, so that I get this clear in my head, you've all gone out from the jetty to berth 6.
Right.
You went there first. I've
Right.
just done it about 10 days ago. All right.
Right.
I know what's involved in doing so. Probably less complicated with us than it would have been for you because there were all kinds of COVID protocols in place then. In any event, at 9:15 on the 25th of February, you, together with all the people listed on that document, scroll up again, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, if we include Mr. Marajad Singh. 15 people, plus the pilot of the boat and various other seamen that were no doubt with him, were all on this boat going out to berth 6. You get to berth 6, you all get off the boat, and then you conduct this toolbox meeting.
I conducted the toolbox meeting at berth 6 on the barge.
On the barge. So you hadn't got off the barge, you stayed on the barge, but you're at berth 6.
Houston had dropped off at berth 5.
You dropped
Houston, he was at berth 5. He
Right.
wasn't at 6.
So you took him there first?
Their boat had dropped him there.
So you're all on the boat, you go to 5, drop him off, and then come to 6.
No, not our boat.
A
Paria's
different boat.
yeah.
Right. So we can exclude Mr. Marajad Singh from being present at the
Right.
toolbox meeting at berth 6.
Right.
Because you say he wasn't there even though he signed it.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay. Anyhow, you conduct this toolbox meeting at 9:15 on the barge at berth 6. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
The meeting lasts however long it lasts. But it can't be for very long, can it?
No, it doesn't.
Because having conducted this toolbox meeting, you all get back, or you're on the barge. The barge now goes over to berth 5, where you're joined by Mr. Marajad Singh. Correct?
Correct.
And a load of others who were not with you on berth 6. Correct? So you conduct a second one there.
Right.
So and that starts at 9:30. So your toolbox meeting couldn't have been for very long, bearing in mind you had to get to the other berth, didn't you? Afterwards, to start that one at 9:30. So the entirety, would it be fair to say the entirety of the meeting, toolbox meeting, couldn't have been more than 10 minutes, if that?
It could be about a little more than 10 minutes, yeah. Okay, well, it'll take you about 3 minutes to go to berth
Yes,
5.
it's not far, but you've got to get all of these people together. They weren't on your barge, you had to get off.
Yeah.
Yes? Right. So have I got it right now? So you're not all on the boat bobbing up and down while you're writing this. This all takes place at the barge, but
Right.
moored
Berth 6
to
was at
berth
the
6.
barge, yeah.
Right. But all of these people were on the boat, were they?
No. Berth 6 people were on the barge. That meeting was held on the barge.
Right.
But I went with the boat to 5 to keep the meeting.
I think I've got it. I think I have enough in.
Well, I was on a slightly different point, but from our perspective,
Go ahead.
we have to wait for the Kensington witnesses to come because there's no one from.
I think we can't take this any further. If I may say so, Mr. Mutu, you've made your points.
There's one
effectively, if
point
may
I
say
want
so.
to there's one point I want to take.
Of
you to,
course.
and that's in relation to the toolbox meeting. The question was put to you whether Paria had perhaps the final say was not at the permit to work, at the stage of the permit to work was signed off by Paria, but was at the toolbox meeting. So I want to ask you this: you're familiar that the permit to you are familiar with the permit to work system, right? And you would also be familiar with the permit to work procedure for Paria,
Okay.
yes? And you are familiar with the term site authority,
Yeah.
right? And the site authority for this permit was Jonathan Ramdan, yes?
Yeah.
And Mr. Ramdan, his position was senior to Mr. Dobson, who was a mere HSC technician, correct?
Correct.
and would you agree with me from what you knew about the permit to work system, is that the site authority is the person with authority to authorize the commencement of the job,
Right.
and he's the one with the authority. He's essentially the one with the authority over that permit for the day, correct?
Correct.
And therefore, would you also not accept that really Mr. Dobson could not have had the last word on that day over Mr. Jonathan Ramdan as the site authority?
Correct.
And everybody knew that, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
But Jonathan, suppose normally when a permit is to be signed with the nature of that type of job, he would have did a visual on site and then sign the permit and be a part of the toolbox. That never happened.
Okay, thank
You
you.
weren't there.
But that wasn't my question. Thank you.
If we could get the roles and responsibilities of the site authority.
If I can assist, I think that's at item 5.3 of the permit to work procedure, which is, somebody's going to have to help me with the page reference. Page 31 of volume 1.
Sorry, it's the Senior Area Authority. 5.5, the Senior Area Authority. I just wanted to get a full understanding of the roles and responsibilities of the gentleman you're referring to. So I'm going to read it. The Senior Area Authority is the overall asset owner having responsibility for more than one facility in an area as identified in the asset map. For the work permit system, the Senior Area Authority shall be the terminal operations manager or technical and maintenance manager. The Senior Area Authority shall ensure that the risks created by simultaneous operation in different facilities are adequately managed, specify any additional precautions to be taken during the work, periodically audit the conditions laid out in the certificates, taking into consideration simultaneous activities throughout the asset area under his control, ensure that all persons under his control who are signatories to the permit to work system undergo the training and certification requirements established by the HSEQ lead. Mr. Dulpol, I'd like to ask you, as you've gone under the permit to work training, what are the components required for the permit to work or the permit issued to go live? If you're aware, as you've gone under the training.
I don't understand the question.
In order for a permit to be issued,
Right.
for it to go live under the controller work system, what are the steps required for that to happen?
They would have assessed the area, the job, the hazards before creating the permit.
Are you aware of all the personnel, whether asset owner or contractor, who should be involved in the generation of a permit and then ultimately the issuance of the permit?
Yeah.
Right, so I'm sort of testing your knowledge of the system since you've undergone the training, all those sequential steps that leads up to a permit being issued or it goes live. Are you aware of them?
Yeah, that I don't know if I can recall at the moment, but yeah, I'm aware.
Aware of what, the steps or just the end result of the permit being issued?
What I could remember is that all the applicant and anyone signing on the permit should be trained, certified, and competent.
Okay, well, I'll move on to another question where I heard that when the sequential process or steps in the method statement, because these are supplemental documents to the permit to work, when they were changed, you said that there was a discussion. Is there a process and or a document that captures that sort of collaborative discussion? In your experience, one, as a HSE professional and or the training, the permit to work?
This discussions happens between the client and my management, and they would then inform me of the necessary changes.
So all these discussions are just verbal, they're not captured in any documentation or any process that is part of the control or work process, which would lead to the issuance of a permit and or be a supplemental certificate on the permit to work, like a management or change form or something like that.
Sometimes there are documents depending on the severity of the changes. Sometimes it's verbally.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for this witness? No.
I have
Do you?
just two questions.
Two.
Yes. May he be shown document at 1070 of the core bundle again? 1070. That's the HSC toolbox document. Right. It's there. The document in front of you, Mr. Commissioner asked you or pointed out to you that the job or project line is bare, right? Just tie that in first. You also told him that the supervisor was supposed to tie that in. Who was that supervisor?
Kazim Ali Jr.
So he was the one who was supposed to fill in that information. And
either or he or me could have filled it in. Either or he or me could have filled that part in, yeah. But what he discussed, he would have filled that in.
so on that day in question, he was the one who was going to fill in what he discussed.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned you had a radio, a Paria radio, just now?
Yeah.
Right. And that was a radio in to communicate with Paria personnel?
Yeah, shipping office.
Shipping office. And
Yeah.
any person or personnel in particular?
Well, it's a radio that it could switch to any channel, HSE, shipping, office, wherever.
And is that radio used for the purpose of you communicating to them what
Yeah.
what work is
Yeah, like
is being carried out?
like seconds before they had entered the water, I had informed Paria that divers are entering the water, and they would have confirmed.
Do you recall who you would have informed?
No.
But you had done that.
Yes.
All right. And the person would have accepted that
Yes.
information, and there is an
Yeah.
acknowledgement of the information flowing from you to them via that
Yeah.
radio. Do you recall if you would have informed them whether when the barriers were being taken out?
No, I didn't inform them.
In the event that they were aware, were you the only person with the radio?
Yeah.
You were the only
Well, Paria officials would have had radios as well.
Paria's officials.
Yeah.
And we would have had Paria officials at Berth. You were at Berth 6.
Yeah.
Right. And at the station that had the live video observing the men in the chamber, they would have had a Paria official at that station.
Yeah, there was someone there from
Right.
Paria then.
And communication would have been able to be transmitted via the Paria officials' radio.
Yeah.
At a time. I think that is all that I have.
Thank you very much. Are we done for the day? Excellent. Thank you all again for sitting a little longer. I'm grateful. We will start tomorrow morning with Ahmed Ali, who's LMCS. And we're going to start at
10 o'clock. 9 o'clock is when we stop at 4:30.
Well, it's 5:30 now. Should we
but
start-
that's something we can keep.
Should we start at 9:30?
Yeah.
Would that be all right?
Yeah, that's
9:30 tomorrow? Thank you all very much. 9:30. Please feel free to go. I'm going to collect my papers anyway, so.
Wow. Okay. Look, I mean, I have to be honest with you all. So this is day 5 of the Commission of Inquiry evidentiary hearings, and we heard from Kazim Ali Sr. and most recently the former health and safety officer for LMCS just now, Mr. Victor Dilpol. I have to be very honest with you all. Based on his mannerisms, behavior, the way that he was answering the questions, I have absolutely no confidence at all that he was sufficiently qualified to be in that position, right? And some people may very well disagree with me, but I honestly don't think that I had confidence at all, right? And perhaps it was a combination of a failure on the part of Paria, on the part of people like Mr. Dilpol, who were responsible in that position as HSE officer to do their jobs appropriately. Look, I'm not being funny, and this is just my opinion. But the way that he described the signing of that document, and then there was a kind of lack of clarity where it concerns how the documents were signed between Berth 5 and Berth 6, because who was on the boat, and that wasn't very clear. I even got the impression that the documents were just pre-signed, right? And they're using that pre-signed document and going with the flow, which would explain why he couldn't exemplify who was on the boat, how it was signed, and if they actually signed it while the boat was bobbing along. Because you would actually think that well, it's not even prudent to be bobbing along on the boat and signing documents, right? There was a lack of coherence. There was a lack of even understanding what the job entails, compared to some of the other LMCS officials who clearly understood the scope of works, who could speak to that. But this health and safety officer for LMCS wasn't able to do any of those things. And then changing up his evidence in midway. Granted, yes, when it concerns the lawyers for Paria, they didn't show the kind of compassion that they needed to show fairly to Mr. Kazim Ali Sr., who, of course, would have lost his son, but they had a job to do, and I respect all of that, right? So, but forget Kazim Ali Sr. We can understand how difficult these things might have been, and as far as I'm concerned, he did a good job in, underscoring his position in the matter and exemplifying LMCS's position, right? And that is for, us to take. And even at the end, I think he made us think very clearly about, lots of different factors. But now when it came to Victor Dilpol, right, I am of the view that Victor Dilpol is a major disservice, and I'm really sorry to say this, but did not only a major disservice to LMCS, but also proved to some extent the insinuation of the Paria lawyers that there is some level of blame that can be put at the foot of some of the people involved in LMCS's stuff, and perhaps even played a part in demonstrating the lack of confidence that Paria ought to have had in LMCS's rescue proposal that they did put about, right? Because if the HSE officer is giving that kind of behavior or impression, how can you have confidence that the risk assessments and so on were done appropriately when, look, folks, I'm just putting my position out there. You don't have to agree with it or whatever, but I didn't like I didn't like this witness's behavior, mannerisms, the way that he was not answering the questions, how he was even laughing at some of the things. And as an employee of LMCS, a company that you worked for, knew the people involved, the guy was even laughing at one point, and I was thinking, well, what's so funny, right? You had colleagues who literally died in the pipeline. So is it that you were just incompetent on the job and you didn't care? I just thought it was highly unprofessional, right? And in some respects, I feel very sorry that this was LMCS's health and safety, officer, because a lot is explained with that, right? I'm really sorry that this level of incompetence. The thing about incompetence is that it shows itself, and whether we want to admit it or not, we have to just be real with the facts that you know co- competency is something that you can see, and incompetence is also something that you can see. If you're competent in the job, you can answer people's questions. Just at the very end, the commissioner had asked him technical questions, questions that Christopher Boudram, one of the divers who actually got saved and came out of the pipeline, technical questions. Even Christopher Boudram, who is not an HSE officer, was not only able to speak to the scope of work documents, all sorts of things that Victor Dilpol couldn't speak to. I think that Christopher Boudram is even more qualified than Victor Dilpol to be an HSC officer, just purely on the basis of how he answered the questions. So what certifications, if does Victor Dilpol have? And if indeed has certifications, what competency adherence did he go through? Because why couldn't he answer the commissioner's questions when they asked him technical questions about what he understands is the role of a cost? I can't remember the term now, right? But it's basically the scope of work and the whatnot, right? But he just couldn't answer the technical questions, and that is quite problematic, right? And I thank you, Marina Joseph, for the stars that you just sent. Appreciate it. But honestly speaking, I really think that this is very, very concerning. She says that this is very unprofessional for a safety officer. People are asking to see the HSC certificates. Yes, that is correct. It was the control of work document. That is exactly what I was trying to remember. Thank you for telling me that, because it's now brought back the train of thought. Why is it that the HSC officer, Victor Dilpol, couldn't speak to the parameters and the processes of a control of work document as explained here by Joe Bourne? Right? And then you're telling us that you can't remember the specifics and giving us just a general understanding. No, you should have a comprehensive understanding. Remember, you're responsible for the safety and health and well-being of your staff, right? And then we're talking about something jumping from point 51 to 61. I can't remember the exact numbers, but you're jumping. On the one hand, they're saying, yes, you should have the permit to work is the most important thing. And then the other hand, they're saying, no, it's not. So then what is it? Look, people, I'm really sorry, but I was not impressed by Victor Dilpol. And I'm sure that on summary glance, had Kazim Ali Sr. had the kind of competency around him to lend credence to his many years of experience, even when he would have come up with a rescue plan and proposed it, had he had the competency around him with the support of a competent HSE officer and so on, maybe that would have led to greater credence around the rescue effort, right? And I totally hear Mr. Kazim Ali Sr. when he said, the way that Paria put forward the imagery to the diving people who came about, right? Where they showed images that were not exactly accurate of where exactly the obstruction was, right, in the pipeline. When in fact they should have shown the borescope images, which was after the fact, which showed actually, because they had the same markings, right, that actually those things had moved up the pipeline closer to the exit, right? And so they were showing divers incorrect imagery, something that wasn't even evidence that they would have obtained. And so people were saying that they wouldn't dive on the basis that there was some kind of obstruction that Kazim Ali Senior was saying just was not there. And so Paria gave a false impression, which of course impeded the rescue effort and of course ultimately prevented them from doing so. But if you notice, Victor Dilpaul wasn't able to speak as confidently as Mr. Senior, despite Mr. Senior even breaking down multiple times, remembering the difficulties of his sons and doing everything he could to try to save him, remembering that Kazim Ali Senior has a heck of a lot of experience, right? But he would have entrusted people like Victor Dilpaul to do their jobs and to be the HSC and so on. And we sat here, and honestly, we have to be honest, Victor Dilpaul did a horrendous job in even allowing us to see whether or not he was competent. And he just was not. He just did not give that impression. He couldn't speak to the technical requirements of his job. He was all over the place. He was not confident. He couldn't answer questions clearly. And he had a very standoffish, incompetent disposition about himself. You know, and I'm sorry to be as harsh as I am about that, but that's just my honest opinion, having listened to this proceedings today. Gwenda Ashby D'Souza says that Mr. Dilpaul had a very lackadaisical attitude. Lana Maraj Buru says control of work permit signed by people who were not on the job site is very unprofessional. Oh, that is also a very good point, right? That's very good. She even goes on to say like it's like if Paria turned into a URP ghost gang and people got paid. One of the things that really stood out to me about this entire incident is how when we really sit down and listen to a lot of the statements that have been made so far, is that everybody who should have been on site wasn't on site. Either they're in St. Augustine or they're not on site yet, or they had to travel down to the site. Where was everybody? And the people who should have been on the site overseeing things weren't even on the site overseeing things. So do you mean to tell me that a whole bunch of people at Paria, LMCS, wherever the hell it is, are getting paid just to feed friends, family, and this, that, and the other, and they aren't really doing their job? They're given the illusion that they're doing their job because they get their paycheck. But when push comes to shove, an incident exposes the fact that people aren't really doing their job properly because they're just collecting a salary and being lackadaisical all around the thing. What really was Colin Piper doing in St. Augustine? What really were the other folks doing when they weren't on site and when they weren't overseeing the proceedings that they even themselves, Paria, say that they're supposed to supervise and oversee? So there's so many things that are problematic. But what we cannot pretend to not see is the fact that Victor Dilpaul was not competent on this occasion. We have a comment from Aisley De Young on YouTube. Says, you guys now seeing the type of people LMCS had working for them, including the divers. Well, look, I can't make such a blanket statement about including the divers, right? Because, but we can clearly see from the being on the witness stand that Victor Dilpaul was not somebody who was in my humble view, qualified or competent, right? you know. So yeah, so look, that's basically it. You know, we definitely need to hear a lot more. Ahmed Ali is being called to the witness stand tomorrow. I think he's the HSC manager at LMCS. Given the dismal performance of Victor Dilpol today and showing up his incompetence, I'm eager now to hear what Ahmed Ali has to say on the witness box and being cross-examined against the statement that he would have submitted to the inquiry, right? So, folks, you know, let's keep the conversation going and, you know, pointing things out that are uncomfortable. And really and truly, at the end of this all, whoever is responsible for playing a part in the undermining of the efforts in saving these men and doing their jobs appropriately so as to even potentially have avoided the incident that took place ought to be called to order. Because at the end of it all, these men and their families deserve justice. And so, again, I continue to pray for the families involved. And I think all of Trinidad and Tobago would agree with me that we pray that they get the justice they deserve and the continued support that is justly due to them, right? Um, and yeah, somebody said, you know, just remember that you know, these guys had months to get together before the inquiry. Oh, I mean, these are good points and stuff. But, you know, when there are holes, there are holes. And you will always be able to identify those holes, even if people try to come together to concoct something. You will always be able to identify weaknesses when you cross-examine people based on their truths. But at the end of it, they would have all submitted statements based on truth. Without fear of contradiction. So if, of course, things come up that clearly contradict themselves, as it did today for Victor Dilpol, who was then challenged to, if he wanted to change the evidence that he submitted, you know, that's the kind of thing that comes up, and then you open yourself up to being accused of perjury, right? And that in and of itself, if taken down the line of prosecution, comes with its own pains and so on, right? So, folks, all the best. Thanks for always being part of the conversation. Keep the conversation going. I will be reading through nonetheless and responding and so on. But yes, we are going into day 6 now. Tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m., the Commission of Enquiry meets earlier, where they will be speaking with Ahmed Ali to decipher what really went on that fateful day. All the best, folks. Thank you for watching.